World where justice is supposed to be blind. There are those who believe the scales are tipped in favor of the powerful. The ones who are meant to protect us are often the ones who cause the most harm. The police force, sworn to serve and protect, have become a symbol of fear and mistrust for many. And the court system, designed to ensure justice for all, has failed time and time again. But there are those who refuse to be silenced, who fight for change, and who demand accountability. Join our host, former Texas police officer and major crimes detective, Justin Carlson, on a journey through the darkness as he shines a light from his extensive 14 years of experience on police injustice and the failed court system. And as he speaks with the many others who have also experienced injustice. This is Failing Justice.
Good evening and welcome to the Failing Justice Podcast. I am your host, as always, Justin Carlson. Also have my co-host here with me and my best friend, Preston Green.
Hey, man. Good evening. Good to be here.
Welcome to the show. We are super excited for this particular show tonight. Man, it's been a heck of a week. I know we've been extremely looking forward to this show. And I want to say you look really good in your Creflo Dollar purple suit. Looks real good.
Well, you know, you're going to have to reimburse me for it.
I'll write you that check from Failing Justice.
Yeah. But, yeah, you've been on me about getting up in my wardrobe.
It looks nice, man.
I
You're real
appreciate
TD
that.
Jakes, Creflo Dollar.
Yeah, I don't know any of the references
I'm
that
digging
you're
it.
making.
That's all right. But anyway, listen, we got a real special guest with us tonight. Been super excited to do this. And we have Travis Yates with us. And Travis Yates, he began his law enforcement career in 1993. And since then, he has served the public in a patrol capacity for more than 20 years, along with other assignments in the gang unit, media relations, training, policy and education, and special operation. Travis has been recognized internationally as a leader in law enforcement training, receiving the International Police Trainer of the Year Award for ILETA. His training in risk management, officer safety, and leadership has been given across the globe, including 47 states. And as a lifelong learner, Travis is committed to training and education. He holds a Master of Science degree in criminal justice from Northwestern State University, and he is a doctorate student with has a doctorate degree with Liberty University, and he graduated in the 227th session of the FBI National Academy, which I didn't know that. Dr. Travis Yates, welcome to the show, man.
Gentlemen, call me Travis, please. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We are just super excited, especially because just diving right into this, we know as police officers have been in law enforcement that leadership is the foundation of it all, because everything from that point, everything comes from that. And we ended up running into each other on the internet, Twitter, as a matter of fact, because you had said something that really stood out to us, and we knew at that point that we had to get you on the show. So, Travis, he's in Dallas, been in Dallas the last day or two, and he's come in from Tulsa. So, thank you so much for making that drive and being willing to come on the show tonight.
Well, I'm very, very grateful and very, very humble that you asked me. And, you know, what you said rings so true. And I don't want you to discount the fact that what you two do here and what so many others doing around the country is part of the solution. The time of apathy is over. I mean, if you think we have great leadership in law enforcement, you have been asleep for about a decade. I mean, we'll get into it, but it fathoms me of people that want to have their backs patted and all the praises and all the little quadruple trilogy awards, and they're bragging about all this leadership stuff, and the practicality of it. The reality of it that the street cops know. In fact, I see that, Justin. I do a leadership seminar, call it Courageous Leadership, and I thought if I call it Courageous Leadership, that's what it is. My book's based on that. It's kind of a little of a cool name to it, but what happens is, and I've had some people that know a lot more about this than me, because people in law enforcement, cops, real cops, they don't go to leadership classes. Here's why. Not that they don't want leadership, but they're working around people that have been to those classes, leadership type classes, and they know who they're working around. And they don't want that. And so in the first 15 minutes of my class, I see the look in their eyes. It's the best thing ever. I had to finally film some of it because and then the first break comes and they come to me and they go, I had no idea this was this. And I go, yeah, because you're used to this leadership one-on-one nonsense that if it had worked, we would not be in this position right now. And so what I'm seeing, unfortunately, from the profession is not only is our profession adhering to this nonsense, they're doubling down. Like, they're doubling down. I was just out on the West Coast, and a guy heard this class. He goes, man, I got to take us to my agency. And he went to his chief, and his chief says, we do our leadership. We do our thing. We have our deal.
So I had a question about that.
Yeah.
Do you have trouble, because I notice you take a different stance on leadership than most, rightfully so. And so one of the things that I was wondering that I was going to ask you tonight, and you kind of touched on it, do you have any trouble getting to go to agencies and teach your class, or because it is different?
Well, my class is different, but that's not a good thing. All classes should be this. My class is different in this way. We talk about problems, because if you don't talk about problems, you won't get to solutions. I mean, if you go to the doctor tomorrow, Justin, and the doctor just says, hey, Justin, how you doing? We're sending you down to the cancer hospital tomorrow. You're going to go, hold on here. He's going to outline the problem. Then he's going to tell you how to solve it. But so, yes, it is different, but it's unfortunate that it's different because it's just leadership. And we've messed this up so bad. And you say, yes, I'm not on the road 200 days a year. There are people in the leadership space that are on the road 150, 200 days a year. And, in fact, one particular one, very popular, and he was at a conference I was teaching like on a Wednesday. He was there on Tuesday. And, in fact, my wife went with me. I said, hey, we're going down a day early. I got to hear this guy. He must be spitting gold. Like, I want to learn, right? When I started teaching 25 years ago, man, I embraced the great teachers out there and the great speakers to try to learn this. I said, I need to see what this guy's saying, because obviously he's successful. He's on the road all this time. And I sat there in the room and I realized what the problem was in law enforcement, because he said nothing that would solve any problems. He made them all feel great. It was all butterflies and rainbows and how great those people in the room were, which were mainly chiefs. And I thought to myself, well, this is why he's popular.
Yeah, and he's collecting that check.
He's collecting a big check, man. And, and that's a choice, guys. There's a narrative, there's a road. If you want to be a chief in a mid-city or even any city in America, for the most part, there's a pathway to be that chief. I'm not going to say every chief, I'm not going to say every department, but a lot of departments. And that pathway is not full of ethics and morals and leadership, okay? Same thing in the training world. You want to be a highly popular trainer, you better not actually be trying to solve problems. There's a lot of people making money off our problems. And I just decided, I have God's given me one life, and I'm not going to get to the end of it and go, man, I wish I would have done more. So yeah, what I do, some people will say it's controversial, but it's not.
No, it's not. It's definitely not.
Yeah, it's just
people
sad.
take it that way, but it shouldn't be.
It's just sad that this is not the norm, and I'm not going to quit till it is the norm.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Man, that energy. I've been so excited to have you on the show. I mean, I've just been counting down the days, literally. Two parts to that is first and foremost is I've only been on the job 8 years, and when I hear you talk about leadership and the things that you talk about and the difficulties that we have and some solutions to overcome it, it's all things that I'm like beating my head against the wall to get people to listen to me over on a day-to-day basis. And I haven't been on the job that long, so when I hear these things from you, it's like, oh, I'm not crazy, right? And then the second one is, our podcast. Our audience is, we have a wide audience, and we talk about a lot of different things. Basically, failing justice, the entire justice system is failing. But I'm excited about tonight because we always talk about the problems within our organizations and leaders. And I mean, we talk about the problems all day long. And tonight we get to bring some receipts and some solutions. And I just hope that, there's a couple guys on duty listening to it in their squad car, right? Or we'll hear this and pass it around because I'm going to be real honest. I don't know how much work you do in Texas, but this Texas culture of police leadership is something fierce, and I mean, you just don't go up against it. I mean, it is cutthroat.
It's a fucking joke.
Well, it's
Amen.
not just Texas, gentlemen. It's not just Texas.
Yeah.
This is an epidemic in the profession, and this is what's happening. And when I came on the job in 1993, I got hired when I was 21. I hit the streets by myself when I was 22 years old. And my first sergeant I thought he was this old, crusty guy, but he was younger than me than I am now. His name was Larry Clayton. And he was an ex-Vietnam veteran, Marine guy. And he was no holds bar. If anyone lied about you, he went after them. If the media lied about you, he went after them. If some chief or some deputy chief or some major tried to do you wrong, he went after them. He defended his people. Not when they did wrong, when they did right, when they followed the rules, which is what they all tell us in the academy, right? They've been lying to our profession for years now. Just follow policy, follow the law, you'll be fine. That's not true in many of our cities. That's a lie. Because there are many people that have lost their jobs, had their lives ruined for doing nothing but the job they were asked to do. And so we knew whatever we did, because law enforcement, obviously, we're having to make split-second decisions. You know, it's a very gray area on what we're tasked with doing. By the way, the same politicians that trash it are the politicians that make the laws that make us enforce them. They want to come back and hurt us. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm a little embarrassed by it. This guy was a tough guy, man. And I remember thinking, you got to be kidding me. I grew up with this guy. My dad was a Marine Corps Vietnam veteran and a cop. I grew up with this guy. Now I just got out of the house. Now I got to work for this guy. But I got to tell you, I'm embarrassed for thinking it, because now I look back to leaders like that. Where have they gone? Because everybody today wants to blame all of our problems on somebody else. It's the media's fault. It's the activists' fault. It's the defund police fault. It's this fault. None of that stuff is unique. 30 years ago, we had the media going after us and lying. That's what they know. 30 years ago, we had activists out there. Yeah, we didn't have social media. The social media 10X's it. I get that. But all of these entities that are doing us harm today only begin to be successful because of us. Because our leaders. And people don't like to hear that, because it's true. I've challenged people. I've been on the road for over 20 years teaching. I didn't try to do that, by the way. I didn't try to be a trainer. All of a sudden, people just started calling me and wanted me to come talk to them. I thought it was weird, but I just did it. And 20 years later, I've been busier year after year after year. And so I didn't try to do this. But I'm telling you right now, that's what's changed. The environment, yes, things seem worse. But, man, 30 years ago, I could remember incidents that were just like today that ended differently, because our leaders said, that ain't happening. You know, we are not going to let you lie about us. And that's the problem. That's the problem. We are eating our own. We're doing this to our own. And leaders do not like to be told that, because many of them just fell into the job. You know, we have many incompetent chiefs and sheriffs in this country for a myriad of reasons. Now, I get accused a lot of bashing all these leaders. Listen, there are some great leaders out there.
Yeah.
There are some great leaders out there, but they are being drowned out by the cowards. They were being drowned out because, and by the way, when I teach for the last 20 years, I always challenge people, because I think the word controversy came up earlier, and I laugh at it. I go, listen, if I say something not true, hold me accountable. Maybe we don't do it in the middle of class. Get up with me at break, because I want to be truthful. I want to be factual. You read my book, there's no opinions in there. It's factual data. It's important to me. To this day, no one has shown where I have not been truthful. They just don't like what I say. And if that's the barometric of success, then I'll take it, right?
The truth hurts.
Yeah, and I've experienced that on this podcast, because a lot of times we talk about different things that sometimes go, like, you know, sloppy police investigations, things like that, and people say, "Oh, well, you're a cop, you know, you're a Blue Falcon, you're not telling the truth." But I am telling the truth. You just don't want to hear it. So it's the same way with leadership and these quote unquote leaders. You know, you said you didn't want to be a trainer. You just kind of fell into it, and you know, I will say, you know, we are grateful. People like him and I, Preston and I, are grateful that you're doing what you're doing, because it's not controversial. It's just facts. And I haven't read your book, and I'm glad that you gave us a copy of this, and I can't wait to read it. But a lot of the things that I know that you've said, because I listen to a lot of podcasts that you're on and stuff, and it's just facts. And we have lost our way, and it's literally what you said, what we were talking about beforehand. It's our own fault. It's nobody else's fault but our own.
Well, and Preston, you said earlier, maybe there's some cops working right now listening to this. I want to give them hope.
Yeah.
Because the gig's up, man. We know what they're doing. We know how they're doing it, and we know who the cowards are. And so they need to have hope. Don't just leave. Have hope, because we're going to run these people out of their jobs. We're going to expose them, and I'm going to continue to expose them. And it's not just me. A lot of people have to be silent. As you know, if you're a working cop, they policy up where you can't say anything oftentimes. And so I'm the voice for them. There's other people that are voices for them. But we know who they are. When you know who the enemy is, you know to attack the enemy. So we have to push. That's why in my classes, it happens every time, because we have this hierarchical system in law enforcement. It's just a joke. By the way, before I get to that, Preston, you said you've been in the job for 8 years. When's the first sort of course or seminar or lessons you got in leadership in the profession?
It's an interesting question.
It's not interesting because everybody says never unless they went to, unless they got promoted. But if you're in the military, they say day one.
Yeah.
Day one.
Yeah, so I probably could have seeked out some earlier on in my career, but
this isn't on you.
I chose not to, though, because I didn't want to go listen to what they were teaching.
Right.
Like
I see that all the time.
Credit where credit's due. A chief I worked with, probably one of my greatest mentors in law enforcement, besides the man sitting across this table from me. The man was a leader.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, when I came to my current agency, every day I got a leadership lesson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because the man was a leader. Did he have his flaws? Yes, we all do. Nobody's perfect.
Right.
Maybe administratively, maybe he didn't fit the pic. Looking back on it now, I look back at that situation sometimes, and I'm like, well, maybe he didn't.
He was too rough around the edges.
He didn't meet the image of what the chief should look like. But I'm telling you, if that man would have told me, walked outside in a parking lot and said, I want you to go tackle that telephone pole right now, you best believe I'm tackling that fucking telephone pole, because the man was a leader. So, to answer your question, I got leadership lessons every day, I felt like. Every day that I could be in the office and work with him, I was learning something, and I was learning to be a good leader. Sometimes I was learning what not to do.
Right.
Right? And
Right.
and learning lessons life lessons.
Well, I think most cops today have not had anything formally given to them unless they've gone to some fancy acronym school.
Until they get promoted.
That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
You can learn even if you haven't had anything, because you get to see what good and bad is and then take from that. But it says something about the health of our profession when we don't do any formal leadership training until you pass some silly test and take your shirt to the dry cleaners, get some stripes sewn on it. And then we rarely give them leadership training. We give them management training or administrative training, how to shuffle paperwork or how to investigate complaints. But it says something about the egos of those that run our departments that don't want other people that have rank to get that type of training. And that is sad to me. And I've been pushing for this. Every time I get called about a seminar, I'll ask the host, I'll say, who's coming to class? And they'll usually say, oh, it's captains or majors or lieutenants. I go, oh, why aren't the officers coming? I said, I'm not coming unless you bring in officers. If you don't have every rank represented in that class, I'm not coming. Well, why do you want that? I said, because if the officers are there and they get the same thing your upper administrators get, guess what? They now know what you're supposed to do. Everyone's holding everybody accountable. We should not be scared of exposing every single officer to the highest level of leadership. And you're right. Most people have to seek that on their own. But the fact that our profession has not standardized this, and we have multi-million-dollar professional organizations in law enforcement that won't say a word about this.
Don't get me started.
They won't. And that tells you about the health of our profession. So what does that mean? Hey, you sergeants out there, hey, lieutenants out there, your majors, maybe a chief, if you're still awake, listen to me. Listen to me. Tomorrow, start inquiring about giving everybody in your department leadership, not management. My little sister could push paperwork in the police department. Burger King needs more managers. We don't need any more managers in this profession. Leadership. And now the question is, what type of leadership? That's a whole nother conversation, because it needs a little more. You need a little more than a Jocko quote, what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah.
But real leadership. And if you are choosing, I love it. There's some conference and it's whatever acronym of conference there is, the chief takes the major or the deputy chief. Why are you going? You're at the top. You've achieved it. Why are you not sending other people to these conferences? So there's
Because what else are you going to do with your dues?
At the sheer basic level, if you want to know if we're healthy, ask any organization, whether it's us or Apple or the military, when do you start talking about leadership? And they're all going to tell you day one, except for our profession.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right.
Unfortunately, I am.
Yeah. And again, it's facts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not.
Now, maybe you're right. Maybe some people get fortunate and they got a great FTO. They got a great sergeant like I did. But that's not guaranteed.
No, and we're in no position to continue to run the risk. I mean, I'll be quite frank. My opinion is that this profession, law enforcement, is
say it. You know what you want to say. I'll say it for you.
Yeah.
We're over if we don't get this right very quickly. We're done. In fact, departments are already going bankrupt. They're already folding municipal departments as we speak. Sheriff's departments are taking them over because in the sheriff's departments, a sheriff has to lead to reduce crime or they don't get elected. So oddly enough, the actual one political position in law enforcement is the one position that oftentimes gets it right.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. We're over because, 10, 15 years ago, I'm young. I mean, I ain't even been doing this job that long, but so hypothetically speaking, if I knew what I was talking about, right? But so we used to probably could look at things and go, look at what the damage we're doing out there. We've done that now. Now we are just completely self-destructing and doing. I don't even know if it's repairable.
The most difficult thing to do is to admit when you're wrong. All right?
Well, that's the first thing they teach you in AA.
That's what we're experiencing right now. Everyone with a few brain cells can look out at our profession collectively. I'm not picking on any particular department, but collectively and go, recruiting's at an all-time low. Retention's at an all-time low. Budgets are spiked. Morale's at an all-time low. I got all the data for all that stuff. Well, that seems to be very, very bad. But nobody is taking ownership of that and saying what is causing it. They want to blame other people. If we can acknowledge that, listen, this is why I have hope. Many people understand what we're talking about. They're just not all in positions to make changes in those
That's exactly right.
They can't because they got their livelihoods to look after.
This is the important thing, guys. This is the important thing. It's why I will push until the good Lord takes me home. There are people in middle management, supervisory ranks, and officer ranks that are listening right now that will one day be at the top. And if we can get to them now, it's like a criminal. If a kid doesn't start acting right by the age of 14, 15, they're going to be in prison. Guys, you can't change what has happened. Very rarely you're going to see somebody at the top that changes because they've been successful being that way. But people in the middle that are seeing this chaos, one or two things are going to happen. They're going to go, man, we got to do this differently. Or it's going to be what I call incestual leadership, which is, you guys have been around this. It's like, new chief's coming in and you go, man, this new chief's going to be great. I know him. He's going to do awesome stuff. And for the first couple of weeks, you kind of get some hope. And then he goes right back to the same old thing. And you go, what happened? Well, I'll tell you what happened. It's hard. What I'm talking about is hard. That's why I won't be on the road 200 days a year. This is hard. But listen to me. If people in the middle ranks and below can get this and it's principle-based and they just don't give in and they're courageous, we fix this. And we fix this quick. But it's going to take some difficult work. And listen, man, that most people don't want to grind like that. They want to just go to work, act like a fireman, sit in their car, wait for the call, grab about a few things, and go on. But it's men like you that give me hope. People that are going, you know what, this is wrong. We have to talk about this and fix this. That's what makes this country great. My goodness, if we didn't have courageous men and women in this country, we'd be answering to a king right now. Yeah. We'd be reading the Bible in Latin. Hell, we wouldn't even have Texas barbecue, right? I mean, we had courageous men and women that were not only courageous, many of them knew they were going to die. Now, if we had that built this country, you're telling me we can't stand up to a cowardly chief in one police department? Give me a break.
Well, listen, man. So I got a question on that. I agree with everything you just said, 1,000%. What do you say to those who do try to stand up? It's like whack-a-mole. right? You're at the arcade and you got the little chipmunk comes up and you hit it. My views are not necessarily associated with my co-host's views. I was fired by a coward.
Yep.
On Thursday, because I try to stand up to his tyrannical leadership. What do you say to those who try to do that and then things they get fired, they get demoted, they get pushed over in the corner to the night shift, whatever the case may be? How could you give them words of encouragement to push through that?
Yeah, when you're in the arena, that's what we're talking about here. You're in the arena fighting for what's right. It's going to be bruised. You're going to get bruised. You're going to get hurt. Sometimes you're going to get 10x'd. There's a lot of great, courageous men and women right now that got fired, unemployed. There's a lot of that happening. I don't know a particular situation here, but I will tell you this. You have to sort of, and listen, I could talk for hours on the battles that I went to battle for, and I wasn't always great at picking my timing. Wasn't always great at my tactics or techniques, but there's a little bit of that in there, right? Like it's probably, running to the media or getting someone, or there's just ways you can do it and ways you can't do it, because you're more effective for me and what I'm trying to do, and for society. Your community is going to be more effective if you stay in the department, right? Like, you're working for cowards, it's bad, but how are you going to change it if you're not on the inside, right?
You can't.
So it's more beneficial to maybe pick your battles wisely and stay inside that agency and keep working for the greater good. Than what I did so oftentimes, which is I would just go to war without even thinking about it, right? And even though I was right, I had my shares of bruises and bumps, right? So, I was never fired, but trust me, there were very uncomfortable times, and that is normal. And see, we're a profession of comfort, which is odd. We want to be comfortable, and you can't be comfortable and fight for what's right. No one ever said that comes with it. So, you're going to be uncomfortable. You're not going to like it. But if you set and you're going to have your opportunities to make change, but it may not be tomorrow, right? It may not be this very second, even though we're very frustrated.
It's a long game, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Listen, it's a long game of what happened to us. These cowards were among us for years. Until a few years ago, they got their opportunity, right? And they took advantage of it, right? And whatever fancy word you can think of, or whatever fancy policy language they've thrown out there that they never evaluate to see whether it worked or not, because it often does worse things than that. It makes things actually worse. They don't evaluate it. And so it was a long game for them. So it has to be a long game for us. This will not happen overnight. That's why I'm committed for the rest of my life to talk about this, write about this, put stuff online for those cops that are out there that are hurting, that want help. We're working on an association now, Courageous Police Leadership Alliance, cplalliance.org, where maybe .com, I don't know, check that out. But if you go to my website, you'll see that stuff. Because I want to collect all these people together. And maybe they can't use their real name because they have to be tactical about it, right? Because together we're stronger than single. Listen, I've been singled out because, I'll be honest, guys, I wish I wasn't the only one talking about this stuff. I know I'm not, but we may get in the Department of Justice later, but why am I the only one talking about the failed DOJ consent decrees where 14 of the top 20 cities, 14 of the top 20 most violent cities in this country are being ran by the Department of Justice, and they're claiming success? Why am I the only one that points this out? Where's our organizations? Where's the other leaders? I wish I wasn't the only one. So my goal is we're more stronger collectively than we are by individuals, and that has to be the goal. And that's going to help that person, as you talked about, Justin, that wants to fight.
They're going to lose their paychecks and their pensions. You're talking about 14 of these 20 cities, these quote-unquote leaders, and you use that term loosely. If they stand up and they say anything, if they claim anything other than success, they're going to lose their paychecks and they're going to lose their pensions.
Let me give you an example real quick.
And their fame.
Yeah, let me give you an example. Can't give names, I can't give agency names, but a lot of people reach out to me that are suffering, like you said. They know it's wrong, they want to fight, they want to know how, and we do our best to help them. A guy called me, he told me about some significant problems going on. He says that I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and so he basically gets threatened. He says, if you do this, he was in a cush assignment. He said, if you do this, and he's an upper manager. He said, if you do this, we're going to send you back to patrol on midnights. And he said, get on after it. Send me back to patrol on midnights. He didn't hesitate. And listen, let me tell you something, guys. When we are willing to sacrifice for what's right, like that guy did,
that's the key. That
changes things, because I can't give you the details now. One day I'll be able to give you a lot of the details, but it has radically improved that police department. It has radically improved the safety of that community because one guy out of a big agency says, this isn't right, right? And they threatened him. And they said, if you do this, if you say this, if you write this in an official document, we're going to transfer you out of this Monday through Friday weekend job. And he said, get on after it, send me the paperwork. And today, as I speak, he's working. He's probably going to work right about right now. But that's how we change it. Men and women that are willing to go, I don't care about what you're going to do to me. This is what's right. That's what America is for. And if we want to get back to law and order and safety, which is what we should all be about, we have to have men and women willing to do that.
And it's courage.
That's exactly what it is.
Right.
Because courage is doing something when you know it could hurt, right? It's not courage to take a stance when you know you can't get harmed by it.
But when you're willing to put yourself out
Right.
there, and that's the fundamental purpose of our profession
100%.
is to serve, selflessly serve.
Imagine this, man. We have men and women that will run through a dark alley after men with guns. They don't think twice. You put them behind a desk, put some bars on the collar, they act like scared little children.
Oh yeah,
How amazing is that? Is that not an amazing environment?
because you can hurt my ego and my reputation. That's what people want to hold on to.
Listen, I'm a man of grace and forgiveness, and for a while I sort of thought to myself, maybe they just weren't prepared. Maybe they just weren't prepared. But now I've changed my tune. No, they're not good people.
Exactly.
It wasn't about because doing right and wrong is put in us by God. You know, as a little kid, you can't steal. You know, as a little kid, you can't lie.
Right.
So they're doing it on purpose.
Yep. Yeah, and that's a great point that I always talk about when we talk about bringing people into the profession. And you know, we say it all the time: right is right, wrong is wrong. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Like it's not complicated to do the right thing. It might not be the easiest choice, but it's not complicated. But I can't teach you because I can't teach this. I can influence it. I can lead and show by example. So when I talk about bringing people into the profession and recruits, and well, when we go through the hiring process, I do it completely different. I don't care about anything. I need to know who you are, because I can tell you what, I can teach probably anybody to push a black and white radio car and answer some calls. But I cannot teach them how to be a good person, a good human being, treat everybody out there that they come in contact with just basic human decency. I can't force it. I can influence it. I can try, but at the end of the day, if you don't got it, you don't got it.
Let me boil this problem down in about a sentence for you. We have the most head knowledge on leadership at any time in history. You can't look at a conference. You can't go online without seeing the memes and the leadership stuff and all the gurus out there, all the training and all the classes in our profession alone on leadership. There's more information in our heads than ever before, but there's the least amount of practice than we've ever had before. And we have to go from our head to our heart. Because if it stays in our head, you're living it right now. But if it gets to the heart, you will do whatever it takes to improve where you are.
Yeah, and a lot of times, I mean, sometimes things like this don't sink in. I think for some people until you lost it. It kind of goes back to sometimes second chance cops are really good cops because they've lost the badge before, right? They've done something wrong, and so now they know what they need to do to get better. I kind of relate that to this profession. It's like, have we not learned? How many times have we been hurt? How many times has somebody walked out that door over and over and over and over again, claiming the same problems? My biggest one that I think is a joke, but the leaders and the managers and the politicians, this will be the excuse. They left for money. Let me tell you something. Ain't no cop out here signed up to do this job to get rich, because it ain't going to happen, and we all knew that. If somebody is in the profession for the right reasons, because they want to serve, an act of selflessness, it's not for the money. It's because they want to serve. That's their purpose and meaning in life. So these agencies, that's the excuse though. Because if it's not the excuse, then why do you have $20,000 sign-on bonus to be a cop? Give me a fucking break.
Listen, we're going to get to the solutions later, but if you want to once again see how completely sick and weak this profession is, the hiring bonuses from our leaders thinking that solves the problem. Folks, listen, I've been, for the last 5 years in rooms, I will ask them on leadership seminars, who here knows somebody that left this job before they wanted to? They were going to stay 30, they left at 20. They were going to stay 20, they left at 2. They just left early than they planned on for various reasons. In 5 years, thousands of people, every hand in the room has gone up. That tells me if we don't get this fixed now, it's over. Folks, we don't have a recruiting problem. We got a retention problem. You're never going to catch up to it. We aren't leaving law enforcement, guys. If you remember this, don't remember this one, listening out there. We aren't leaving law enforcement. It left us.
Yep.
It has left us. That's the sad part. The good part is everything bad we're talking about, there's one reason, leadership. And the good thing is everything great that we can be is leadership.
Yes.
And so just like we lost it, we can get it back. But we better stop playing games. I'm telling you, we better stop playing games because you think it's bad now, blink. It's coming.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, one quick thing. I hate to talk so much, but again, I'm your guest, so I'm going to do it.
Do it, man.
I wrote an article back. For some reason, God gave me this weird skill. I'm not a prophet, but like I could see things clearly ahead of me that's coming. And back in early 2020, I wrote an article called "America, We're Leaving." I ended up on Tucker Carlson after I wrote it because it went silly viral. But I wrote in there about all these issues, and man, if we don't change, this is what's coming. I had a chief at the time that called me a clown for writing it. I go, "Are you insane? Are you literally insane? You do not see this, right?" And guess what? We're leaving. We're leaving. Yeah. Because we refuse to acknowledge the problems and fix the problems. But just like we got in this mess with leadership, guys, we can get out of it. That is what God's purpose is for me, and I'm never going to stop. And so I know there's people out there that want me to stop because they don't like to be exposed. I'm not stopping because I believe, and I see it in the eyes of the officers, from the officer rank and even the supervisor rank. They see it, and they light up, and they get it. And we just need to keep encouraging them so they can get to a level of, not of leadership, because they're already leaders. Leadership has nothing to do with rank, to a level of authority. Exactly.
And give them hope. You know, that's why I stay in, to be quite frank. I mean, it's...
Well, if all the good ones left, what are we left with?
Yeah. Yeah. I never set out to be a cop. I always say that this job chose me. And I don't know why I'm still in it sometimes. Well, I do know why I'm still in it sometimes is because it's a fight for what's right. And I tell you what, I've made a lot of bad decisions in my life. But I'm going to get this one right. Even if it costs me my job. And that's the thing, you know, earlier you asked that question. You know, what could you say to give people hope, you know, that might try to stand up? And they could just get knocked down. And I know it's fresh, you know, last week. And it's definitely, it's not something that I'm too happy about. But because I know you, I know where your heart is. I know what you're trying to do. It's just unfortunate that some people didn't want to listen. Some people take it as a threat. And when I'm not threatening you, I'm telling you what you need to do to change. I'm telling you what you need to do to get this thing right. And they take it as a threat because it hurts the ego. It hurts their position, their position of authority, all the control they've ever had their entire life that they worked up to get to where they are. It just completely attacks them and it pushes them down. And they can't fight. Because they're cowards, like you say. They're cowards.
Well, great leaders don't want yes men around them.
No.
I'll never forget, I got this, one of the best assignments I had was special operations, and it's all this cool stuff Tulsa has, you know, really great men and women, SWAT team, bomb squad, you know, K-9 units, all this cool stuff. I didn't know anything about a helicopter unit, but I was the commander over the unit. I'll never forget, man, Like I'm changing offices, and I got all these officers I've never even talked to before going, can we help you move? Can we move your boxes? What do you need, sir? And finally I was like, what's going on here? Well, I figured it out. Like good men and women, they'd earned their positions, but the only person that could affect that position was me. I could remove people anytime I wanted and send them somewhere else. And so they were going to, and so finally I had to actually tell some of them, I go, you need to stop it or I am going to remove you. Like, I need you to tell me when I make a mistake. Tell me when you disagree. But it freaks people out because most people in this profession, I'll give you an example of the unhealthiness. If any officer listening to this gets an email from the chief's office tonight and says, hey, come by the chief's office in the morning, what does every one of them think?
Freak the hell out.
Getting fired.
Think they're getting fired.
I'm getting fired.
That should not be happening.
Absolutely
should not be happening. And that is happening. You know, it's not a joke, but we all say this joke about, you know, somebody gets promoted and they go, oh, when do you go get your spine removal surgery? And we all laugh about it. But if everyone knows the joke, it's not a joke. That's how bad our leadership is, that we have a joke about it. Now, I want to give one last tidbit for the folks out there listening, because this isn't all about problems, folks, but we have to talk about problems, get to solutions. Here's your hope. I don't care what's going on around you. I don't care what your chief's doing. I don't care what your sergeant's doing. Guess who gets to be a leader tonight at work? You.
Yep.
Whether you know it or not, you are influencing people. That's what leadership is. You're changing lives. That's what leadership is. So are you a sergeant with 10 or 15 guys around you? Or are you an officer with some other coworkers? You get to lead and influence people around you. I don't care stop looking what everybody else is doing. You're responsible for you and the impact you're going to make. Because if you sit around and complain about it, you're going to get to the end of your career and you go, man, I sure didn't make much of a difference. But guess what? If you go to work every day, put your feet on the ground, and you go, I'm going to go lead. I know I'm not a rank. I know I'm not this. I know I'm not that. I'm not some sexy, tactical, cool guy or gal. But I'm going to lead when God gives me the opportunities, and he will. You change the world. You may not change the entire department. You may not change the entire country, but you're going to change the people around you. And if you doubt me listening out there, everybody listening to me can name me a name right now that positively influenced them that was not a rank. Everybody in this profession can tell you, can give me a name right now of somebody at an officer rank or heck, a civilian that made a difference in their life. Okay, what are you doing about it? Go lead. Yeah. We've complicated this. This isn't some quadruple trilogy with Jocko yelling at you type of thing. Here's what leadership is, gentlemen. Care for people. Care for people. Care for people more. If we would care for people and take care of people, I'm not talking about covering stuff up. That's how it's not. Care for people. Be kind, just care for people, support people. They've been doing surveys in the business world for many, many years about why do you leave your job. The number one reason, and this is a survey of over 1 million employees a year, the number one reason for every year is salary. No, it's not. That's what we think. We keep raising people's salaries and giving them bonuses because no, that's not the number one reason. In fact, benefits is about 4th or 5th place. The number one reason is they care for me and support me. That's it. Yeah. So this is not complicated. You want to lead better? Figure out what you can do more by caring and supporting for people.
And that's not just an opinion. There's factual data to back it up. There's a book that was written. Gosh, I wish I could think of the name of the book. But it was written decades ago, and it actually talked about improved, because I read it. It had statistical data that showed, it's probably different today, right? But like, until you offer somebody a significant more amount of money, and it was like back when I read the book, and the book was published, I think, over 10 years ago. It was like maybe $90,000 or $100,000 was the mark, right? But that's the mark you had to reach as far as monetary value for somebody to actually really consider making a move in their career if they liked everything else. And that was if they would even do it then.
Well, everybody, that's just all these cowards want some simple solution or tell their city councilors that they're doing. And of course, we've raised these salaries and we've raised all these benefits, but I'll tell them how it's not working. My agency used to recruit, and other agencies used to recruit from the suburbs. Everyone wants to go to the big city, right? You've raised you're paying more. You're paying more. Well, how many recruits are you getting from those cities now that are getting paid less? You're getting very few, if any. This caring thing is important. I didn't realize it. I did a dissertation, and my dissertation was actually on the importance of communication and organizational performance. And I didn't do it because I was smart. I did it because I wanted a very topic that I thought I could get through. There was a lot of past research on that, but it had never been done in law enforcement. And so I interviewed a bunch of people in the profession. And obviously I found out that communication is one of the most important aspects. In fact, I found out that those that lack communication, 94% of them didn't even know what to do every day at work. It was pretty insane. Morale was at 76, 77% low. I mean, it was really incredible. But I heard this caring thing, right? And I said, well, I didn't really study that, but let me go do a word search. This is a 400-page document. So I hit up the Word document. This was a couple weeks ago, actually. And I typed in the word caring, because I didn't really remember that coming out. I don't want to get into it. In the dissertation, you do what you develop themes. You develop themes in the dissertation. And I hit the word caring, and all of these interviews started popping up. I don't feel like they care about me. They don't care about me. They don't, and they're talking about in the auspice of me asking questions about communication and perform. And this word caring kept coming up. So if there was one thing you can do tomorrow without going to a fancy school, just care more.
Yeah.
End of story.
That's end of story. Period. Like that's it.
That's it.
Because they always want to throw fancy titles on everything, right? And acronyms for what we need to do and why we need to do it. Let's write a policy on it. So if you want to try to be somewhat fancy, I call it servant leadership. Subscribe to being a servant leader. That's the fancy term for what we're talking about, but it's not fancy and it's biblical. But the way I look at leadership, every time you promote or climb, take a new position in your organization with more authority, maybe more people to lead, maybe less. But every time, your role changes. So, we've got this thing all screwed up image-wise, right? Like we want the image to be on, we're so focused on what a good chief looks like when, guess what, in reality, if you've got a good chief, you'll never see his ass. You know why? Because he'll be taking care of his people. That's what a leader in a law enforcement organization needs to be doing these days. Their number one priority isn't city council, isn't the city manager.
The problem is all these chiefs want to be freaking city managers.
Well, that's another problem. That's a whole nother problem, or elected officials. But because if all you're doing as a leader in your organization is catering to everybody else outside of it, then the people inside are lost. Nobody's caring for them. Nobody is serving them. So if you're a leader in an organization, your sole purpose should be serving the ones that follow you. That's it. Because you're not the one. Maybe if you're a frontline supervisor, you're shagging some calls, but you're not the one out there answering the 911 calls, getting up in the middle of the night, running these hot calls, going to disturbance, getting in shootings, whatever it may be. The chief, the captain, the lieutenants, none of them are doing it. Maybe every once in a while they'll do it.
But they want to criticize the hell out of it. That's for sure.
So if they're not even taking the time, you have to just be taking care of the ones who are actually out there doing the job, serving others.
Kind of hard to build your I love me wall when all you're doing is serving, I know. But, I would be a terrible politician, guys, because if I was a mayor, this is how I would evaluate my chief, other than their sole mission, which is crime, and nobody wants to talk about that anymore. That is our only mission, is crime control. But I would call my chief in the office, and I'd say, give me the names of the spouses of the employees you have. And today I'd have to fire a chief every day, right? But that would tell me where the heart is of that chief. You don't even know the names of their wife or their husband or their kids. You haven't asked about their family. You're fired. I'd be like Donald Trump every day, right? We have to get back to that. I want to give a shout out to a friend of mine.
Powerful, man.
I want to give a shout out to a friend of mine, retired Dallas Sergeant Keith Winslow. I don't know if you guys know Keith. He told me a story one time that really impacted me, because this is something I had to work on. Let's not act like we're all perfect, like you said. If you're a leader, you're beating yourself up all the time.
Yeah.
That you got to do more, right?
If you're a leader.
Yeah, if you're a leader, you're always looking yourself in the mirror, because, see, we won't look out the window, fellas, but you got to look in the mirror if you're a leader and go, what can I do more? How can I be better?
Every morning.
I'd even suggest in the lunchtime, son. If you're a real leader, you're always questioning, what can I do more? What can I do more? Well, Keith, this impacted me because I wasn't that great at this. he was a sergeant in Dallas, and 10, 15 people works for him in his squad, and he wrote a personal letter to the spouse of his officers, and he just said, listen, your husband, your wife's working for me. They're going to be with me a lot, but I just want you to know, here's my contact information. If you have any questions, concerns, anything that you need, you can reach out to me directly. I just want you to know I'm going to do my best to take care of your spouse or your loved one. I'm here for you. And I asked him, I said, man, it seems simple. Folks, that's what we're talking about here, by the way. You can't sell simple, I get it, but it's so simple. And I'd never heard of that before. And I said, Keith, how did they take it? He said, well, half the squad thought I was trying to have sex with their wife. But the other half really appreciated it. Really appreciated it. But that's what I'm talking about. What can you do, right? One quick story on this, and I know we probably have to move on, but I was 23, 24 years old, and one of the best chiefs I ever had, his name's Ron Palmer from Kansas City. He, and when you're a rookie cop, essentially, you never see the chief, nor should you really. But the chief, every month he rode. He showed up on a different night, graveyard, even shift. He would ride all shift because he finds out what leaders find out. Man, I can't find anything out in my office. I got all these people that want to tell me how great things are. I need to be out amongst the people, right, and learn from them. And ever since then, I've never seen it happen at my agency, but he would do that every month. And I get a call from his admin sergeant, and I'm a kid, man, and he's like, hey, the chief's coming out with you next week to ride. And, of course, I freaked out a little bit because, like I said, you just, as a young officer, that's weird. It's a large department, right, 800 people. He shows up, man, vest on, working evenings. It was a little bit, a little nervous, but then we got into it. We start going to calls, and he's a likable guy. And we have a pretty good night. I had trouble getting the back or somehow, but we had a pretty good night. And this is how powerful, caring, this is the power that everybody listening has right now.
They have it.
I remember this story 28 years ago. It's in my book. This story is one of the most powerful stories in my career. It got me through some of the darkest days of my career. We get to the end of the night. I get out of my car. He gets out of the car. He's going to his car. I'm walking over to my car. I don't know, we're 50, 60 yards apart. He says, Travis. I turn around and said, yes, Chief. He goes, man, I really appreciate tonight. You're a great cop. And you could tell the way he said it, he meant it. He didn't have to stop and do that. He'd already thanked me in the car. We had a decent time. He stopped, turned around, spent 4 seconds, and told me that and meant it. And to this day, I get emotional when I tell the story. In fact, who knows where my career would have gone if I couldn't have drawn on that certain times when cowards were coming after me. Yeah. That's the power that not chiefs have, not sergeants have. Everybody listening to this in any profession, you have that power. God forbid if we don't use it.
Well, we got to start. I mean, we have to. We don't have any time left.
You know what happens with your concert? Somebody flicks a lighter. I don't know if they do this nowadays, but somebody turns a lighter on. Well, they use a phone now, right?
Yeah.
One goes on, then more go on.
Yeah.
More go on, then the whole damn stadium's lit up.
You're going to feel alone.
So guess what? Light the damn flame.
Yeah.
Let's get after it.
Let's burn it. Yeah. Let's burn what they've got going to the ground, and we'll start.
And this is my challenge, guys. If there's somebody listening to this, they don't like what I say, call me up and prove me wrong.
Oh,
in fact, we'll come right here. We'll come right here.
Task.
Prove me wrong.
Yeah.
Listen, if I'm wrong, I need to know
more
it.
seats at this table. But what's interesting too is you can't. It's hard to get. We tried. I tried. He's tried. It is hard to get active law enforcement on this show, and the reason for that is because a lot of them are scared, right? But we had a guy in here. I bring this story up almost every podcast. I swear to God, because it was so powerful to me when he said it. Richard Miles, he was wrongfully convicted. Did 16 or 19 years in prison for a murder he didn't commit, and he was sitting right here, and we were talking about the system. He says, "You know what, Justin?" He said, If you get people in this room who are active, and I'm talking police officers, sergeants, lieutenants, police chiefs, majors, whoever, he said, when you get those people in this room, no matter what your topic is, because your topic is failing justice, you are trying to better the system as a whole, and leadership is part of that. My point is, if we can just bring people to the table and start having these open conversations and these dialogues. But the problem is, listen, man, I can't imagine my previous chief sitting at this table with you. I feel like you'd eat him up.
Well, that's not the point. That's not the point.
Well,
right?
it's not the point, but
Nobody wants to hear it.
sometimes I feel like that needs to happen. Some people need to. I mean,
You got to have to. Well,
let me also say why people are so hesitant to talk, because cowards make policies that shut people up.
yeah.
If you're a policymaker out there listening, you have a policy that your individual officers don't have the same rights as every other citizen in this free country, then you're a coward because you're afraid they may say something they don't like. But the easy way to do that is not make a policy, run a good department. You don't have to worry about them talking bad, right? And so they put policies out there to almost trip people up that they think may hold them accountable, and we see that all across the country. The good thing about the cowards, they have one way, man. It's so easy to smell. They all do similar things. If somebody's out here listening and all of a sudden, maybe you're trying to do the right thing, and all of a sudden they start nitpicking at you, and they're coming at you, and
what's happening.
They're investigating you with all these little things that they never investigated before. That's exactly what's happening.
you got their playbook.
That's right. Yeah, it's in the book, by the way. I write about all in the book. In fact, I got transferred when the book came out because some guy thought I wrote it about him, and I go, no offense, but you're not that interesting. It's a book about collectively bad leaders. It wasn't about you. So if you read the book and you thought I wrote about you, that kind of says a lot about you. I don't know why you're mad at me.
Hey, maybe he's starting to evaluate, though, right? Maybe he's starting to look in the mirror.
I'm not sure it happened that way, but yeah.
There's always hope.
Listen,
But he read it.
I'm very self-aware that what I say may come across as a little aggressive, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I want to change things. I want to fix things. I care about our communities. I care about law enforcement. Heck, we all have kids, and they're going to be growing up in this country. And if you can't watch TV every night and see the failure of law enforcement, the failure of the criminal justice system, you're crazy if you don't see it. So do we just keep watching it and go, that's the problem? Or do we go, let's fix it?
We have to.
100%.
There is no other option besides laying down and just freaking taking it. But I've got kids. Like you said, we want anybody who doesn't strive for the future to be better than what they had when they were younger. I don't know what the hell you're doing in life.
This generation of law enforcement is the first generation of law enforcement that left the profession worse off than when they found it. Think about that. When my dad was in law enforcement from 1972 to 1996, 1999, 27 years. When he handed his profession off to me, it was so much better. In 72, we didn't have field training. We didn't have officer survival training. We didn't even already have ballistic vest. We didn't have any of that. We had, when I came on, we had ashtrays in the squadron. We didn't have walkie-talkies. Every generation's left it better. That should be our goal. Today, it's the first generation in this profession. Our leaders have left it worse off. So we have a choice. Do we just throw our hands in the air and say, yep, it's the way it is? Or do we say, let's get to work? And listen, we got to work in generations past, gentlemen. People don't know this, but in the 70s, obviously we lost about 230, 240 officers a year in line of duty deaths because we didn't have much training, we didn't have much technology, we didn't have much resources. But 1/3 of our felonious deaths were with our own handgun because we didn't have retention holsters. Did we just go, it's the way it is? No, we got to work. We built retention holsters. Caliber Press came on the scene. Street survival training came on the scene. We improved safety at a level to where line of duty deaths, up until a few years ago, we had plummeted to a low, not low enough, but lower than they had been historically. And so we've seen generations. Go back to the 60s. I wasn't around then, but I've seen the videos. It looked like it was pretty chaotic. Yeah. And law enforcement wasn't exactly on the right side of a lot of things. What did we do out of that? Man, we fixed that. When I came on, it was a big deal about we don't have enough diversity. We don't have enough diversity. Man, there's departments now that are over-diversified, which is a great thing. We should reflect our communities. We have adapted and made things better every step of the way, and now look at us right now. Look at this generational law enforcement of what we're leaving it. But we have time. We have a little bit of time to reverse this, and if you're looking at your chief and say there's no hope, get over it. He won't be chief for long. Cowards are going to go. They got a place to go. It's called perf. They're going to take off and do their consulting work and get out of your hair in a minute. The next one coming up needs to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Why do you? It's hilarious. You say consulting work. Why is it that all these coward chiefs? Not all of them. You can't. When we're having these conversations, you got to be careful. You can't just.
Of course not.
You can't generalize everybody.
If someone's listening to this, Justin, and think we're talking about all of them, they're idiots.
Right.
We obviously aren't.
No.
But doesn't mean we can't talk about people because it's not all of them. Of course, it's some of them, but
It's the majority.
well, it's enough that it's in fact affecting things, right? It's enough. Like no one's going to San Francisco going, man, I bet the majority leadership's pretty good here. Nobody's saying that, right?
No,
So it's
no.
enough. There's good leaders in San Francisco. I talked to a lot of these men and women, but there's enough bad there that it's creating the problem. So there's enough bad that we're talking about the problems.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that was one of my things was going back to consulting. It's like, yo, you can't even handle this 10-man, 15, 20-man department. What the hell are you doing thinking you can go out here and start a consulting firm and you're going to start giving advice to the rest of these law enforcement? And that's the problem. It's repetitive. You have horrible coward leaders giving advice to other people, and just so they can continue their horrible coward.
It's a fucking monopoly. It's a moneymaker.
It's damn near a RICO violation what's going on out there, and it's a long conversation. But you know, if you're obese and you love to eat, you're the first one online making fun of people that are healthy, right? It's the truth. I mean, if you're a coward, you're going to surround yourselves with cowards. You're going to be involved with cowards.
That's strong.
And so, listen, I hate to put so much focus on them because they're so weak. But we have to expose it so we cannot repeat it. What's the definition of insanity? We keep doing this over and over again.
Expecting a different result.
Yeah, we have to change the leadership paradigm. But here's what I'm concerned about, and you guys just mentioned it. This corporate RICO wild stuff going on, it's embedded in virtually every institution in law enforcement.
In everything.
It's embedded through the grant monies. It's embedded through the consultant work. And if you're a cop in XYZ, a lot of the training you're getting is coming from federal government, Department of Justice, grant money. If a department's taking grant money from DOJ, which most of them are, you then have to follow the rules from DOJ. And listen, I don't have time to go into a lot of the issues there. Obviously, there's good men in the DOJ, but I just gave you the one metric you need to stop and go look up. 14 of the top 20 cities are ran by the DOJ, the most violent cities in America. And that tells me I don't want to be like that. And so, but we have agencies that are having to follow those same rules and policies. So it's embedded to a level where, and listen, I don't want to give details, but I've been approached by some leadership consortiums you recognize. And they've offered some things that would make me stop talking like this. Okay?
I believe it.
All right? Of course I'm not going to do that. It's insulting. But that's what we're talking about here. It's like reading every John Maxwell book that's out there. It all reads the same. I love John Maxwell, but that's what a lot of this is going, and it's all flavor of the month. How many times are we go, hey, let's put sanctity of life in policy. That makes things better. Hey, let's all do mandatory de-escalation training. That makes things better. Hey, let's do this. Let's join up the 30 for 30 for women for this. That makes things. I'm tired of pledges. I'm tired of promises. Let's start leading. None of that stuff. There's no reform that's going to change anything if you don't have leadership. None.
There it is.
And by the way, all those reforms out there, do anybody go back afterwards the fact to see if it even works? No, they just do it because they're getting money to do this or money to do that, or they're virtue signaling to a community member or whatever they're doing. Nobody goes back after the fact and goes, did this actually work? And they can't do that because then they would expose themselves.
They just check the box, man.
Check the box.
Check the box.
That's right.
To reduce the heat.
And
reduce.
It's amazing to me how people will listen to this and certain people will go, well, I don't really agree with all that, or these guys sound angry. No, we're not angry. We're passionate about wanting to fix something, right?
I'll be quite honest. I'm pretty pissed off.
It's okay.
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Well,
because and something that I will say here too is, we talked about it. We don't have a lot of time to fix this, and you said pick your battles earlier when Justin asked you that question. This is, to me, from where I'm sitting, I'm a guy who's been in law enforcement for 8 years. This is a battle, an aggressive battle. Like, we don't have time. We don't have any more time.
Lives are being lost.
Exactly.
Yeah, lives are being lost.
And I'm not talking about the community. I'm talking about the lives that are being lost and the lives we are ruining within the profession, and it's sickening. It's absolutely sickening because you have cowards and you have people who don't care, because it's so damn easy to care.
Yeah.
But the lives that we are ruining in the profession, because what's the worst thing in law enforcement? A cop with a 12-hour shift and an idle mind and some drama going on at home outside of the job. The job is already mentally and emotionally hard enough. Everything else on that, that impacts us from the outside, that just adds on to it. You know what else? Something I'm real sick and tired of seeing is I get on LinkedIn and I just, I'll see chiefs post officer committed suicide. Post. Oh, here's an app. Here's an
We
article.
all want a simple solution.
Here's an article. It's not simple, though, because you got to care. You got to know your people. You have to be in tune with what's going on. You got to recognize that they're human and they're gonna make mistakes, and they're gonna be dealing with stuff, because you're asking somebody to do a job that is, not everybody is wired to do. When you talk about fundamentally what we're here to do, stand between good and evil, right? Well, you might not be standing between evil every day, but when the time comes, you've got to be ready for it. Like that's some mental preparation. And then if you're on the job for a few years, it takes a toll. I don't know how to describe it other than the fact that it just does. Just take my word for it, right? But these leaders, they don't care because you're replaceable. You're a number, and it's bullshit.
Yeah, we say, hey, you mention an app, you say, okay, well, and it goes back to what you said too. I feel like, why do these chiefs, leaders, majors, captains, why do these people not know the names of your spouses, your kids? And if something's wrong with you, those guys should be comfortable, guys and girls should be comfortable enough to walk in that office and sit down and say, hey, listen, I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z. But instead, no, don't come talk to me. Download this app on the App Store.
Or here's the EAP.
Here's
the EAP.
Here's the AP. But when they do find out about it, then they're on the radar.
Worst words ever said by so-called leaders is, I have an open door policy.
And they all say it.
Let me tell you something.
Well, God Almighty,
Let me
they
tell
all
you
say
something.
it.
Let me tell you something. I know I'm talking to some of you out there. If you have to say it, you don't have an open door policy. In fact, I told my wife I wasn't going to cuss here on the show.
We usually don't. Tonight, listen.
I know we're fired up, but listen, I want to stress a point. I don't typically believe in it, but if I need to stress a point to get someone's attention, maybe I will. I don't know, maybe I won't. But forget your door, man.
Yeah.
You know what word I was about to say. Forget your door. Go to their door.
Exactly.
When's the last time you walked into a detective's office? When's the last time you rode in a patrol car? Go to their door. Go to their meet. Stop with this. I said they can come to me. They're not going to come to you now. If you're a great leader, they'll come to you.
They're going to
flock to you.
They're
going to flock
you.
to you. But so if they're not coming, that's a sign. That's a sign. But I said I have an open door policy. You can shoot that right up your ass. It doesn't matter. I don't care what you say. That's the problem in our profession. We're saying a bunch of stuff, but what are we doing, gentlemen?
We don't care.
Now, listen, we talked a lot about the problems. I want to shift a little bit to what I think can really solve this tomorrow. Okay, you ready? We developed some principles. Because one of the criticisms of the book is kind of probably what some people are thinking right now. It's like, yes, I agree with so much. We got these problems. I agree. But, what do I do now? What do I do now? Well, one of the things we did is we formed the Courageous Police Leadership Alliance, CPLA Association.org, CPLassociation.org. And we developed some principles because, that's part of the problem with leadership. What we saw happen was it wasn't that we had great leaders in the 80s and 90s, but when significant chaos occurs, that's when leadership happens, right? And when 2020 happened, 2016 happened, and all these significant events people know about, first off, the one sign of unhealthiness is you're not going to see the Dallas superintendent of public schools do a press conference because some school teacher in California raped a kid last night. You don't see that in other professions because people recognize, man, that's out in California. That's not us. But in our profession, something could happen 2,000 miles away that, by the way, may or may not be true, just viral. And we got these virtue signaling chiefs. By the way,
we stand against it.
If you're a great leader, you don't have to say it. People know that could never happen at your agency. So what we did is we developed principles, because in times of chaos, you better have not only principles, but you better have a core morale sense of purpose. Because listen, I don't want to dismiss it. It's hard to lead an agency. Man, your sole mission is crime, but nobody even cares about that, and they're asking about this program, or that person's upset, or that. I mean, so you're having to deal with all these external issues, which is why crime's out of control. We've lost our mission. So it is a difficult job. So you know the chaos is going to come. It's not if, it's when. So you better have principles. So we develop principles that we can say right up front, this is what I stand on, and I'm not going to deviate. I don't care what you call me. I don't care if you fire me. This is the principles. And I just want to read these principles and tell me if you guys have any problems with them. I'm open to that, right? Okay, here are the principles, and we'll give you a free poster, free download. Just go to that website. But here's the principles. Courageous police leaders, number one, they will always demonstrate and demand integrity. I'm just going to read through these quick, and you guys can tell me at the end. They stay focused on liberty, civility, and public safety. Mission, that's what that is. They never let feelings redefine facts. If I got 3 seconds in front of a Chiefs conference, that's all they'd give me before they kicked me off the stages, I would say, don't let feelings define facts. Because think about how emotions and feelings have destroyed our profession.
Yeah.
Encourage vigilance, professionalism, and cooperation. Communicate both internally and externally to eliminate misunderstanding. Anticipate and continually challenge assumptions and the status quo. That's making things better constantly. Inspire others to lead courageously. Does anyone, do you think, would ever have a problem with that?
Shouldn't.
I don't think anybody with a straight face could look at, I don't think anybody with a straight face that's out there, coward or not, could say there's a problem with that, right? Because we're talking about, and if you wanted to, I know these highfalutin chiefs need buzzwords, right? So we're talking about integrity and empowerment and civility and encouragement, all these buzzwords, right? I mean, make a poster out of it. But anyway, so here's what you do. Print these off, take them to your chief and go, Chief, do you agree with this? He's got to say yes.
Oh, of course I do.
Then sign here, brother. Sign it.
That's our new core values.
Sign it. I don't need you to hang on the wall. I need you to sign it and put your name on it and date it. And then when you violate it, we got you. Now, so if a chief says he believes in him and won't sign it, you know you got you a coward. You don't need to wait for him to treat somebody harshly. You know you got you a coward. Because they're all going to say they agree with it, aren't they? I mean,
yeah,
I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to have integrity.
Of course we do.
Of course they do. Make them sign it.
Yeah.
But guess what? How many would?
I mean,
I would love to think some would. A leader should say, not only will I sign it, hold me accountable to this, because I'm not perfect. Hold me accountable. I used to go out to lunch once a week with some friends of mine, and some of them are friends, some of them are associates, but I told them, because I didn't know this, because they don't give you a school for going up the ranks, and I got promoted 3 or 4 ranks higher than I should have. I know that. They made a mistake. They clearly knew that. And I told somebody, hey, one day I retire, if the troops love me and the upper brass hates me, I accomplish something. Well, job well done, I suppose. And I would take these guys to lunch, and I would say, listen, no bullshit. I need to hear from you honestly. What do you like? What do you not like about this program or that decision? Tell me what you think. Now, the key is you can't do that if the first time somebody disagrees with you, you jump down their throat, because nobody's going to ever tell you the truth again. And they oftentimes would tell me about problems that I just didn't see, because it can be a lonely job, right? It can be a job where everyone's telling you how great you are, and you kind of don't see that outside world. But I was doing my job if I was in my office, and this irritated many people throughout my career that were higher than me, which is essentially chief of police or deputy chief, is oh, you're not in your office. Well, I can't lead in my office. I mean, I had people working for me that were at the airport, that were at this division and that division. I need to be around them. I need to be with them. Like, you're not in your office. You know the guys that are always in their office looking like they're busy are the ones not busy.
They ain't doing nothing.
And so we should not be scared of men and women holding us accountable, because we aren't perfect. I made plenty of mistakes. Everybody makes plenty of mistakes, but you're not going to ever learn from those mistakes if you don't have any accountability measures around you. So I know the poster seems a little bit comical, but I actually don't think it is. Like, that seems to make sense to me, right? What do you believe in? Oh, I believe in whatever fancy word they're saying, right? I mean, you can't even get a chief's job in America today if you don't say community trust is your number one goal. That has nothing to do with your mission. There's nothing. I mean, it's a vague metric. By the way, Gallup says about 80% of the public trust us. So what are you talking about? Well, community trust, community trust. And they get that little Bill Clinton look, right? Listen, you know how you can build community trust? Do a great job. Do a great job. Because if you're in the community and crime's out of control, they ain't trusting you. I don't care what kind of TikTok dance you're doing. So quit with this nonsense that all these organizations are telling you to do, right? Listen, think about why you trust companies. Why do you buy an Apple phone? Why do you buy an Android phone if you're the devil? Why do you go to this restaurant?
I agree with
They
that.
have built trust with you to do it. And once in a while, the waitress at the restaurant you love will make a mistake, but you forgive them because over time, they've built that trust. We think by, once again, simple solution. We think by doing some program or something the ICP told you to do, or some TikTok video or midnight basketball, that somehow builds trust. You're a lunatic. How you build trust is, first off, you have to give them a reason to trust you. And that's for you officers out there with your fellow officers. No officer's going to trust you until you trust them. And it goes mutual, right? So some chief standing on his high horse saying, the community's going to trust me. No, unless you give them a reason. Well, here's the reason you give them. Run a great department, reduce crime, go after criminals, do your job, do your mission. Will everybody trust you? Nope. I don't trust used car salesmen. I don't know any. I just don't tend to trust them. And the data will tell us about 10 to 15% of Americans will never trust cops no matter what. Meanwhile, we're running circles around every reform and program in the name of community trust while crime is out of control. You can fix law enforcement tomorrow if the mayor says this to their chief. I hope you're listening, Mayor. I'm going to fire you in 2 years if crime don't go down. Guess what they're going to have to do all of a sudden? They're going to have to drop all this nonsense these organizations are telling them to do and all these little hop, skip, and jumps on TikTok, and they're going to have to actually go to fighting crime and empowering their people and giving them the resources. Because guess what? Guess who the experts are at fighting crime? We are. We did it in the 90s to record lows, right? But that all of a sudden became racist, so we don't do anything anymore because we can't, once again, look at the principles. We can't give the facts over emotions or feelings.
What do you think about all these chiefs and captains and deputy chiefs, leaders, right? That's what we're calling them. I know this last year it was in San Diego, so you had IACP, and we've kind of done a little digging on IACP. Sounds like you've probably done more. But they go to San Diego, stay in a nice little fancy high-rise hotel all week, rub elbows with all the vendors so they can bring that stupid crap back to the, because they're worried about toys and technology.
Technology's taking the place of people. That's why it's hurting. It's killing us.
Yeah.
These chiefs are putting technology on a resume while they don't care for people, and that's why the profession's being destroyed.
But so what do you think about? Well, let me phrase it this way. What do you know about the IACP?
I know I'm not a member anymore for the myriad of reasons. This is what I would say about
because wasn't it the report that I pulled that I think I sent you. I can't remember the number now, but it was an ungodly amount of money that the director of the director of the IACP was making. I wish I could remember that number now.
Oh,
it was.
Everybody listening, thinking of a number, go higher.
It was about 700,000 or 800,000, I think.
Yeah, I want to be careful here because these cowards love to litigate and to lawyer and do this thing. So I want to be very careful here. But I would say this about the IACP. And I had an ICP rep in a class a couple of weeks ago, and he was very upset at what I said. And all I said was this: ICP, this is my opinion. I have to look at the facts, but you're taking a considerable, I'll just say considerable, because I actually know the percentage. I'm not going to say because I may be just a few percentages off. They're taking a considerable amount of money from the Department of Justice. And that same Department of Justice is
they had Merrick Garland at the freaking conference.
That same Department of Justice is using their reform mechanism called a consent decree, which is unconstitutional. The 10th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution prohibits the federal government from running local jurisdictions. You can read it. You don't need the Supreme Court to tell you. Just read it. But it's unconstitutional, but it's unconstitutional if chiefs let them, which is what has happened for 30 years. Yes, chiefs asked for it and let them because they're part of this club.
That's the key.
Right? And the results, there's not one success story. In fact, every city they've been in, crime has... Dr. Roland Fryer out of Harvard did a study on it. He counted the dead bodies particularly African-American dead bodies that happen after consent decrees come in. This is a deadly decision being made. New Orleans is just one example. After the consent decree, 98% violent crime increase. I mean, I got the data back in my office, but every city they've entered, violent crime has skyrocketed because you now have, for 30 years, a ton of data before and after. And right now, as I speak, 14 of the top 20 most violent cities in America are ran by the DOJ consent decrees. And it's a topic. I'll come back because it's a 6-7 hour topic, folks. To be honest with you, if you want to know more about this and you ever want to know, I've got a website called SavePHX.com, and for the first time, they've collected all of this data that's been destroying these communities, and it's crazy. And so you've got the DOJ funding the ICP a significant amount of money. And you have these cities being destroyed because not only does it increase crime, but staff leaves agencies. Every agency under consent right now is understaffed significantly, and budget's blown. It cost about $250 million every 10 years for this reform. So there's no metric of success there. And people on the inside, and many have reached out to me inside consent decrees, former DOJ employees, have told me about the shenanigans going on. So it's a complete disaster. And my question in class was this, and it offended this guy. Where's the ICP on this? This is destroying communities. It's destroying police departments. You're the largest police organization over law enforcement leadership. Why are you not saying anything? That's all I said. And he got pretty upset. And he didn't do it in class. He was respectful about it. But I would say this to him and others. Most people that are members of the ICP are good people. The people at the top, right? They're not controlling the people at the top. So it's like most big organizations. You've got a lot of members that mean well. They believe like we believe, but they need to start standing up for this. And I'll give you one more thing with the ICP. I think some of their decisions are, I'm just going to say, I think some of their decisions are significantly hurting cops, if not killing them. And here's why. I've got videos to prove it and data to prove it. They have a model use of force policy. That's a very, when you do a model policy, a lot of states will do a model policy. It's just a guideline, right? But it's vague for a reason. Most departments need to sort of tweak it, fit that into their own mode. In my book, I talk about the characteristics of cowards, and the characteristics of cowards is laziness. So laziness is, I'll just put the model policy in there or whatever, right? So, but it's understood that a model policy is just that. It's a model. You need to tweak it for the best of your community, best of your agency. And that policy for years did not address LVNR, lateral vascular neck restraint. That's actually the term out of the Kansas City, the school that's been teaching that class for 50 years. People don't know what this is. This is the MMA. They call it choke out.
Is that the one you used on George Floyd? It is, right? Because did you see that documentary on that?
Yeah, the fall of Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was wondering if that was the same one.
Well, they didn't use LVNR in that. That's what I'm getting to.
The thing is, if you use it effectively.
Let me read you this principle real quick. Never let feelings redefine facts. So yeah, George Floyd did not die from an LVNR. He did not die from a chokehold. And you can watch the documentary. It's a whole other topic, but don't watch it at night. You won't be able to sleep after. It's called The Fall of Minneapolis. YouTube and Rumble. You can watch that. There's also a book called They're Lying that the documentary was based on by Liz Collin. Pretty eye-opening stuff, and it should make you angry because no one was giving us facts. Well, anyway, let me get back to LVNR.
Sorry. In
50 years, and the school up in Kansas City has a documentation. There's not been any significant injuries. There's not been any deaths. In fact, most people listening to this will watch UFC this weekend, and they'll be rooting for an LVNR. Is what they'll be rooting for, right? No, and if LVNR was deadly, we'd be running to calls at noon at all the jiu-jitsu gyms in your community to pick up dead bodies. We all know this. Everyone knows this. So George Floyd did not die from a chokehold. He did not die from LVNR. In fact, under testimony, the chief, Arredondo, said that it was a knee to the top of his shoulder. Well, he failed to say that for the year or two before that to the media, right? But he said that when he was under threat of perjury. Yes, that was a knee to the top of the shoulder. It had nothing to do with the neck. I digress. But instead, so what the ICP did, which is what a lot of these chiefs look up to for guidance, which they should, unless they're doing stuff like this, they took that model policy that had been around since, I believe, 1996, and hadn't changed too much, and nor should it, because it's a model policy, and they added LVNR as deadly force.
Right.
And all of these chiefs changed their policy in their departments, where now officers don't have that tool. Now, I'm probably not going to die on a hill on LVNR, but here's the problem. Bad guys don't have those rules. So I have videos right now on my computer where we were in a position to use the LVNR, and the policy had been changed to deadly force in that agency just prior to that. The officers didn't use the LVNR because most of our street cops are more scared of getting fired than dying, okay? And these officers died. I have the videos to prove it. And that is a direct reflection of an IACP recommendation to make something deadly force that was not deadly force. And nobody can sit here with a straight face and tell me it's deadly force. And for those of you not in law enforcement, the definition of deadly force is any tactic that could cause a significant risk of serious injury or death. Well, I call 0 injuries or deaths in 50 years not deadly force. And my agency was no different because we have to follow the IACP. Let me tell you why. This is crazy. And I think people that just tune into this won't even understand this. I mean, this is crazy that we're letting this happen. Let me tell you why this is so important. Not only do our chiefs take this but ICP, but frankly, I've talked to a few that didn't want to. They knew it was wrong. But if they don't, their mayor, their community activists, because they're looking at the ICP as the best practices. And they're going to question that chief. Well, you aren't following best practices. You know who else uses the ICP model policy? Read any consent decree summary. They bashed Louisville for having LVNR in their policy, and I saw the asterisk because I'm like, well, listen, if a department, because LVNR it's not like you can just teach it and be done with it. You got to teach it. You got to retrain it every year. You know, it's like pit maneuver, right? It's not just some simple tactic, but if done correctly, it's one of the most effective tools we have. You don't use it often, but it's a very effective tool. And by the way, can save if an officer of a smaller stature is fighting some crazy person that's completely strong, this is a force multiplier. This can really help them. And the DOJ, in their consent decrees, as they're trashing the Louisville Police Department for being this racist police department on this summary report where they don't tell their methodology or any specifics, cite that's one of the reasons, because they have LVNR as their policy as intermediate force, which is where it should be, but it's deadly force. Asterisk, ICP model policy. So it goes full circle. They wield a lot of influence. And when they act politically like that, because that's a political move, which is what many chiefs that are members there told me. They go, we didn't want to do it. It was politics. Well, that has no business when it comes to the life and death of police officers. And that's just one small example. So most people that are involved in ICP mean well, but there's lots of money flying around. There's lots of money flying around. I mean, this is the same group, by the way, that had their model policy a few years ago, warning shots. In fact, I think it's still in there. They put warning shots in their model policy. These aren't exactly the beacons of law enforcement intelligence here, right? These are typically very elderly chiefs, no offense, elderly chief, that haven't been in the game in 20, 30 years and haven't stopped a car in 50 years. And you're telling all these other chiefs what to do. You know who the best person is to make their department better? Not the DOJ, not the ICP, leaders. Mm-hmm. So if you as a leader are relying on these entities in Washington, D.C. to tell you how to run Columbus, Ohio, you're a coward. But here's why they're doing it. It protects them. They get to say what if it goes wrong? It wasn't me.
Yeah, they can.
I just followed the IACP guidelines. I just did this. It is so weak, gentlemen. I can't even wrap my head around. Honestly, there are times when I wish I didn't know this stuff. Like I wish I wouldn't have pulled the IRS document for the ICP and saw the money. I wish I didn't know it. Because it's like everything. You see this from afar and you go, oh, yeah, they're doing great things. Oh, that feels good. That feels great. I like that. I like this. I like that conference. I like this. And then when you look behind the scenes, it's like if you're at a church and you become a deacon, you're like, what's going on here? Right? You get, I wish I didn't know it, because it bothers me, because that's not just some willy-nilly decision. That can kill people. Listen, my department, they wrote out a new use of force policy, like most departments did, all of George Floyd, because I had no idea what it has to do with any department. That's at Minneapolis, Minnesota. They were screwed up before George Floyd. Wires other department jumping and knee-jerking based on one incident somewhere, because no other profession does that, or we wouldn't have any professions. I mean, doctors kill 300 to 700,000 people a year, depending on the data you see. It's the third or fourth leading cause of death in America. We're not leaving here and going to right in front of hospitals right now, because we sort of understand not every hospital is the same, but I digress. But I sat in this staff meeting where they wrote out the new use of force policy. And listen, I'll get people behind the scenes. at most staff meetings, because I've heard from a lot of people, it's kind of like oh, that's great, Chief. Oh, that's great. It's great. And they roll this use of force policy out, and they're explaining that they took LV&R and they moved it to deadly force. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, sounds great. And I was the one guy in the room that went, it's not deadly force. You know what I was told? We know. We know. Does that say it all? And that's not just my department. I don't want to bash them. That was virtually every major police department in this country.
Not major, small town too.
Right.
Because I mean,
right. I know. We know. But guess what? We're letting feelings redefine facts. Do you see how insane this is? How does not everybody see this?
Well,
it's groupthink, right? So,
it's also safety. It's the art of self-preservation. Man, if I just do what I'm told, do what the ICP says, don't make any waves, I'll get a great pension. I'll get a great consulting gig. That's what we're seeing.
Protect
but
my
guess,
position.
But guess what happens? You don't change anything. You don't leave a legacy.
You don't do nothing.
You really aren't doing what God put you on this earth to do. Shame on you.
Yeah.
I'm never going to get a teaching job after this podcast, guys. I mean, this is not exactly what the day's like. I can guarantee you that. We actually really get people fired up and talk about solutions. I wouldn't be on the road for 20 plus years if I was terrible at it. But we have to have these conversations. That's why I'm thankful about it. Because let me ask you this: who's having the conversation?
Yeah.
Well,
who's having these conversations?
I can tell you where the conversation's having. When you see
we're doored up.
When you see two cops doored up.
100%.
They're talking about it.
We could change the world. We could package that in a pill, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I promise you, they are changing the world.
That's the hope, brother. They're the ones that will be in the offices one day. But here's what I've seen. I've seen people door to door. When I get there, then they get there, and man, there is pressure. There's pressure to stay. Look at a politician. You know, everybody that goes to Washington, D.C. probably has high hopes of changing things. And they get up there and they get told, I'm imagining they sit on someone's knee, probably Kamala Harris's knee. Come here, son. Let me tell you something here. Here's how it's done up here. If you do what we say, you're going to get to that end of that pension. You're going to get all these donor money. We're going to keep pushing you for a re-election. You're going to have a comfortable career. And they have a choice to make. That's where courage comes in. You have a choice. Everyone has that choice to make. And do I go with this narrative? That I know we've been talking about immigration for the last 40 years in this country, right? Do I go the right way, or do I go my own way to try to leave a legacy? Even if you don't accomplish what you wanted to, you've tried and you fought. That's what built these communities. How we've gotten away from that so quickly, I don't understand it. And I unfortunately have been in the profession in this time period. When I came on, as I mentioned earlier, we were doing a lot of things well 30, 20, 15 years ago, and all of a sudden we weren't. So I see it. What happens in 20 years when every cop working the streets don't know about the good things? They don't know how to do it right. What happens then?
You just got nothing but bad.
That's why I love talking to cops. I love talking to these people on. You say, I only have 8 years on. Oh, no, brother. You're the king. We need to convert every one of you 8 years and under, because some of you will be running these agencies, and that's how we change things.
Well, I should have been a cop definitely 20 years ago. Pretty old sold, I think.
You know, I've got an idea for a mini series. I don't think it would last long. I want to take a narcotics cop or a beat cop from the 70s and transport them in a time machine in 2024 and see how long they last. That'd be funny, wouldn't it?
Oh man, I can only imagine.
That'd be pretty good, right? Yeah. Listen, even the criminals have changed, gentlemen. I mean, you guys, I used to run across the OGs, right? The guys that, when I was young in my 20s, I'd run across these criminals in their 50s or 60s. There was almost a code, man. Like, yeah, you caught me. And they would be around the young cats, and they were showing the disrespect to the cops, and they would put the young cats in their place. Yeah. There was a code. The code's over with. It's over with.
Is it, though? Is it? See, I question that. Is it? Or do we think it's over because we stopped doing the job the way that we were supposed to do the job and just treat everybody like they're humans? They're just doing their own thing. Hey, but you just can't cross this line. Don't cause other people harm, right? Like, don't become evil. Even if you're doing bad things, don't become evil. That's when I got to step in.
Right.
Other than that, so I question that because I think it's the human nature of us and us all, and the good guys and the bad guys.
There's no such thing. No, don't get me wrong. in general, there's no such thing. There is a segment of people that are evil.
Yeah.
Evil. But the vast majority of people we're taking to jail are not evil people.
No, they just made a bad
They're not
mistake.
bad people. They're people that have been in situations, right? Situations that, I mean, listen, and as I've grown older, I've realized this. You know, I grew up in a great home with a mother and father. My dad was a cop. My mom was a school secretary, and they pushed education into me. And when I screwed up, they beat my bottom. I mean, when I was in public school, I can remember saying a cuss word on the playground back when I used to cuss, and the school beat me. You know, you get in a schoolyard fight for violence, then the school committed violence against you. You go home and get violence committed against you. And so, if I turned out to be an asshole, that's on me, man. I was raised right. We have kids today that don't have my opportunity, and we've got to understand that. I'm not saying we let them get away with crimes without being held accountable, but we have to understand what's going on here. You know, and I got a lot of heat when I was in Tulsa on the department because I would talk about this because I believe in talking about solutions. And I would say, listen, you can look at the data, man. If you grow up in a single mother household, you can just read the data. It doesn't mean you're going to automatically be a criminal. It just means they got an uphill battle.
Yeah.
There's a reason why 90+% of the prisoners in prison right now grew up without a father.
And why aren't
There's a reason for
why
that.
aren't we thinking about that?
Talking about
and
that.
teaching these people when
That's
they
right.
go out on the street, hey, exactly what you just said. These people are out here, they're not automatically bad people, but that's not taught.
Well, let me tell you, I do agree with you, but let me tell you a bigger problem. I'll bring it back to leadership. I used to have a motorcycle unit that worked for me, and I was the commander, so I didn't ride a motorcycle, but they would work for me, and I would get these complaints of rudeness, right? And I would say it was different traffic units. I had different traffic units throughout my career, and if I got a complaint on rudeness a couple times from the same officer, you know what my first go-to wasn't to call the officer in. It was to see what type of supervision, how's the supervisor treating the officer? Because if you're treated badly from a leader, how do you think that officer is going to treat the citizen?
It's a trickle-down effect.
So if you're an officer out there working for somebody that doesn't care, has no compassion, guess what could happen to you? The people below you are the citizens. You don't care. You don't have compassion. Once again, it's about leadership.
It's like I said when I first started the show, everything flows from leadership. And that's not just police work. Clearly we're just talking about police work but I mean that, you know, look at the national stage right now. Everything flows from leadership or lack thereof. Everything. Freaking everything.
Yeah.
What do you guys think the biggest crisis in we've talked about problems, but what do you think the biggest crisis is in the profession right now?
Oh.
If you could fix one thing today, what could it be as far as what's happening?
For me, I would say, and this may be too general, I don't know, and we've talked about it, I would say the heart problem. Yeah. And that may be too general because there's a lot that can flow from that. You know, what's the verse in the Bible, you know, about your heart, everything flows from it. Just teaching people heart, which translates into compassion. And that's within the walls of the police department. And if it's happening in the walls of the police department, it's going to transcend out into the street, and we're going to have better results all the way around. But you know, we talk all the time, like if it's a sad day when you have officers come to work, and you said it a little bit earlier too. They will go out there and run down any dark alley, chase down any person, you know, shooting at them, whatever the case may be. But they walk in that PD and scared to death. They don't want to be in the PD. Well, and that's a problem.
Well, I'll just play off of that. I teach a class called Seconds to Survival, which is a research science-based class on pre-attack indicators, because there's not ever a surprise. Everybody out here listening knows when something's about to happen, right? Because we know that. The problem is we have a whole generation of cops that are more scared of YouTube and their chief than they are being killed. And they're scared to do things. How many videos have you watched of officer use of force or deaths where you're going, man, how come you not do anything? They're more scared of their leaders than they are of dying.
They're scared of not being able to provide for their family.
That's right.
And ruining their career and reputation.
That's right.
Their livelihood.
Listen, I can't know what's in their head, unfortunately, but there are cops that are dead simply because they were more scared of what the chief would think or the media would think or YouTube would think or somebody filming on a cell camera would think. and they hesitated. And nothing's changed. Folks, there hasn't been one Supreme Court change in the last 30 years. Graham v. Connor's been around since 1989. It's our use of force Bible. Why have we messed this up for our officers and made them so scared? Listen, leadership this is life and death, gentlemen.
Oh, it is.
This is killing not only more citizens, the data's there, it's killing more officers, data's there, and nobody seems to be discussing it or wanting to solve it. You know, I've been to these professional organization websites, and all I see is pledge this and pledge that and sign here and do this. Man, I just know that this is my purpose, and that it can spread, right? And things that you say can spread, and we just got to give people hope to start doing it. And the recruiting and retention thing, I'm fearful, because we talked about if we don't fix things, things are going downhill quick. Well, the way they're going to go downhill quick is the recruitment and retention issue. And I talked about the retention issue earlier because about caring and why people are leaving. The job left them. They didn't leave the job. But this recruitment thing is comical. You got these chiefs out here saying, it's a national crisis.
They hide behind it.
But guess what?
They're doing it.
It's not a national crisis. There's departments right now where people are standing in line to work there because there's leaders there. I'm going down to Mark Lamb's department in a few weeks up in Pinell County. They're standing in line to work for Sheriff Mark Lamb. He's a leader. So, no, it's not a national crisis. You're the crisis. And what is their solution? Which is scary to me, man, because it's scary. Hiring bonuses and this and that. And this is the best one. Let's just do a recruiting video, a fancy recruiting video. Let's do a website. Folks, Washington, D.C. Metro just won recruiting video of the year from Police One. Best recruiting video of the year, and they're patting themselves on the back. They're at the lowest staffing in history. And it is fearful to me on an issue like that is literally, if you're talking about going bankrupt, that's how departments end. If you're 30, 40% down, which Seattle and Portland is right now, in 5 years, you don't exist. The sheriff's department has taken over your city. You're not helping anybody at that level. And the fact that they're this bad right now and they're still doing more recruiting videos and more websites drives me crazy. You know, the problem is recruiting is a skill. There's a way to recruit. Yes, we need to be good leaders. We need to do that. But the idea, this simple solution of I'll just do a video, that is insanity. By the way, they've been doing videos for 5, 6, 7 years now. We see them all the time. How's that working out for them? Nobody, and by the way, I ask this question in class all the time too. I've never gotten another answer other than this. How many people work for your department because you saw a website or a video? No hands. Nobody goes to work for a department because they saw a website or a video. By the way, chiefs know that, but guess what they keep doing? They keep making websites and videos.
Marketing and branding, my friend.
That's nothing to do.
We got to market. We got to brand.
Listen, marketing's important. We should market. You should do a lot more things better than that, but marketing's important. But that's not what recruiting is. And I mention it because what's it feel like when you literally have found the solution that nobody wants to listen to? It's mind-numbing. I had a buddy of mine come to me a few years ago, and he's a retired cop from Utah, good guy. So what are you doing now? He says, his name's Doug Larson. He says, oh, man, I'm in the truck driving recruiting business. I said, what are you talking about? He said, yeah, man, I'm killing it. He says, I figured it out. You think recruiting in law enforcement is bad. Truck drivers have a 100% turnover rate a year because there's nothing keeping them in their truck. You know, there's no benefits. So they see a bonus over here. They'll leave a truck in Phoenix and just go to another truck. So he says, we get a phone call and they go, I need 10 drivers tomorrow. Give me a credit card number. And they figured out how to go get them 10 drivers. He figured the system out. And he's telling me this. Of course, I already knew there was a problem with videos and websites because I worked at an agency that was spending crazy money on this, and I could see the improvement wasn't happening with other agencies. So I already sort of thought that wasn't the answer. Today, as I speak, though, there's bids out there for websites and videos. It's just crazy to me because chiefs want what they want, not what would actually help. And so I said, well, man, you need to come over to law enforcement, man. And we need it. He's like, I don't want anything to do with that, man. This government and bureaucracy. He says, I'm doing just fine. Well, thank goodness he did. And he brought that philosophy over here. It's called safeguard recruiting. And he struggled, man. I mean, he's trying to convince these chiefs that your fancy videos and websites aren't working. And I kept telling him, I said, man, you have the solution. Like, I think you're the savior, man. Like, if you leave and don't do this, because the marketing companies figured this out. They're charging $19.95 prices for websites and videos. I saw a bid the other day, $200,000 for a website and a video and some SEO. It's all marketing lingo, right? Mm-hmm. 200,000. I talked to a chief just the other day. I told him how to solve that. We have all the data on it and how it's solved because they've had lots of clients. I told him how to do it. You know what he tells me at the end? He goes, "Can you do a video?" I mean, it's like, it's crazyville. So finally, they had a large department, and I don't want to tell the department, but it's a top 10 city that called him up last year, and they said, we spent $3 million on a marketing campaign, and our recruiting got worse. He said, "We found
Jesus Christ."
And the reason I believe so much in what he's doing, I filmed some training videos for him. We're rolling out a certification because it's a different mindset. Because we never had to recruit before this gentleman. We had more openings. We had more positions. We had more candidates than openings. I mean, I tested with 1,000 people. They hired 9 people. So up until about a decade ago, we didn't have to recruit. We marketed. We showed up in our uniform at a job fair, and people just came to us, right? So we have to change that philosophy. We have to go to them, and where they are is online. But they're not just finding you on a website. It's just crazy. So this department is going to be down 2,000 people by the end of this year.
The one that spent the $3 million.
Yeah, and their recruiting got worse after they spent $3 million a year gone by. Now
almighty.
I'm not giving enough away because every top 10 city is pretty much going to be down that many. You know, if they don't change their tune, so you don't know which one I'm talking about. And so the guy goes, "Man, I don't have a lot of money. I got $5,000 I can give you." Right? No, first off, no parking company would talk to you for $5,000. And but these guys believe in solving the problem. Yeah, they're a business, but they believe in solving the problem. They sent them 1,500 people in 4 weeks. 1,500 people in 4 weeks. And you go, how'd that happen? Because they're doing what nobody else is doing. I'll give you a little dirty secret for the marketing company, because just like the ICP, I dove into it. Don't like what I see. If you hire a marketing company XYZ and give them $100,000 to recruit for you, they'll do a nice fancy website for you. Maybe they'll do a little video, and they'll say, "We'll recruit for you." And maybe you say, "Yeah, but I need 50,000 of this to go to online recruiting, social media ads." They'll say, "No problem." They'll take that 50, they'll put 48 in their pocket, and they'll put 2,000 on the ads, and they'll give you some web hits, and you'll go, "It's working. How many more web hits you got?"
Web hits. And
I used to hear that in staff meetings, and they go, "We got a lot of web hits." And I was the only guy going, "How many recruits you get?"
Stats.
I mean, a 12-year-old can get you more web hits with boosting a post. So these guys, that's why I'm hopeful. There are men and women out there that have real solutions with the data to prove it. Like anybody out there listening that has given up on recruiting, don't. Yes, you got to fix leadership. That's the retention issue, but you can still get them in the door if you do it right. And these guys, they'll talk to you for nothing. I mean, they'll send you all their training stuff for nothing. But to me, that's amazing, man. But you should hear what so many of these leaders, I mean, I've tried to help them out. I've sent emails to these conferences. Hey, these guys that come for free and tell these officers how to solve it. And they don't want nothing to do with them. You know why? They're not gold sponsors, man. They're not gold sponsors for the conference, so you can't speak at the conference. I'll never be on an ICP stage, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that, right? Because God will put people in front of me that he's supposed to put in front of me, and they will go change the world. I'm not going to change anything, but the people I speak to, I know will change the world. That's how we fix it. So people out there that don't have hope, get some hope, man, because you can invest in people, you can influence people, and then they go influence people. And, man, you can do the math on 5 people when they talk to 5 people and they talk to 5 people. That's how you change the world. And there are people out there doing that. You just don't give up and keep doing it.
Man, and it's so crazy to me because we talked about simplicity. Like, it's so simple, but we have muddied the waters and made it so stinking complicated.
It's weird when you look at the dynamics. These men and women that came up through their careers and they go through dark alleys and go after some of the worst, people out there and dangerous, violent people. Then now they're scared of getting called a name. They're scared of being called a racist. They're scared of being called this. They're scared of being called that. So they just cave for everything. It's insane to me. It's crazy. I don't like being called names either, but right is right. And wrong is wrong. And I just don't understand it, man. I don't understand it. And I wish I did. I wish somebody would just go, this is why it's happening. I mean, I obviously I'm frustrated, but I'm taking that frustration instead of giving up. I'm trying to fight and make a change, and I would just encourage other people to do that.
You got to be passionate.
It's a fine line between passion and anger. I've tried to learn that in my day. But, yeah, I mean, obviously, we should all care about this. This should not be something we should all care about people being safe. And people aren't going to be safe if we don't have leaders inside police departments.
No. Yeah, they won't. That's the reality. That's facts.
I told him, I think it came up in our last podcast with the Cheryl Morris, who was for New York State Corrections. If people knew, the general public, citizens, what was really going on inside of our agencies, there would be absolute freaking uproar from the general public if they truly knew. Because another point that I made the other day was all of our problems, most of our problems, say 90% of the problems that happen, people like, wow, why, why are the cops in the news? Why did this happen? Why did this officer do this? Why did this officer do that? It literally is our own fault. It's coming from within. It starts with leadership, and it's our own fault. And if the general public truly knew the turmoil and the infighting and the just trash that was happening on the inside, they'd be lined up at city council saying, hey, what are we doing?
No, they wouldn't. You know why? Because if you told them what was happening in some of these police departments, nobody would believe it. Nobody would believe nobody could believe that toxicity could be. I mean, I know some personal stories from some agencies, and I can't tell them in public because people would think I was insane.
Right.
Because people wouldn't believe it. I guess if you're going to be evil, be really evil, because nobody's going to believe it's that evil, right? I mean, so you see wrongdoing and you effectively get 10x'd. Do you understand that in every organization on the planet, that can't happen? There's laws against that. There's rules against that. There's protections against that. That's everyday occurrence in law enforcement. Our leaders are leaving carnage all over this country. All over this country.
Every day.
Ruining lives. Ruining dreams. Because people dream to do this job. I see it every day when I teach. How many here know somebody that left early? Left their dream early? Every hand goes up. Every hand.
Amen.
I mean, and if I told people that when the Louisiana governor called for a state of emergency because of police staffing in the state of Louisiana, he did it a couple weeks ago, and I sent emails to various political representatives in the state of Louisiana, including the governor's office, and I said, I can be on your front door tomorrow for nothing. I'll help you fix it. And not one person sent me an email back. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? It's virtue signaling. They don't want to solve the problem. No. And that's my fear in recruiting, by the way. I'll get back to that one more time. My fear is they did their websites, they did their videos, they gave the bonuses. I know the department right now that's giving a $75,000 bonus, and they're about to go bankrupt because nobody's going to work there. And by the way, for 50, Doug did the math. He said, for 40, I can fix your problem. No, we're giving $75,000 bonuses for every. They're about to go under. If we don't turn this around, man, if we don't fix this, that is such a. Now, granted, knowing how to recruit's one thing, but leadership will keep them there, right? That's a whole other issue. But we should all care about this, really. I don't understand. I guess people can tell as if they watch this. I'm very confused because I've always been a problem solver, and I may not have all the right answers, but I want people around me that do. And I don't know why. My fear is on the recruiting end is that our leaders are just going to give up. It's a national crisis. We've spent $3 million and it didn't work. Can't do anything about it. And they just give up because there's not a simple solution. They've done the simple things, right? And if they give up, it is done then. It is over at those agencies, and they can't give up,
Well, and they don't have to deal with it. It doesn't personally affect them because clearly it's not personally. Clearly, you're not going to get booted out the door if you're a chief of an agency that has staffing levels. Do
you know if any chief's ever been fired for high crime? I've looked. I've looked all across the country. Maybe there has been. That should tell you something about our profession when there's not one person that's been fired for high crime or mission. But if you're in the business world and you're the CEO of a company and you've lost money, guess what tends to happen to that CEO? Because they're held accountable to the mission. So there's a lot of things to fix, but leadership, fortunately, fixes it all.
It does. Yeah, it does.
I've made it hard for you guys to talk because I'm talking so much. Right?
No,
I apologize
man,
for that.
No.
But
This
No,
is what we
it's-
wanted. We
It's
wanted
good stuff.
Yeah, we wanted to hear it.
I don't feel like I'm on my A game though. I feel like I could bring more.
No, man.
Well,
bring
this,
some more.
Honestly, I mean,
this is good. I do want to ask, what is your? I don't want to lead you into a trap. So,
Oh, trap me. It's fun.
You made a post on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago.
No, I was hacked, man. I was hacked. That's what all the cowards say. I wasn't me. I was hacked.
Yeah, you made a post. You asked for people to comment in one word only. What's the most important characteristic?
Yeah, I did that for a reason. I do it in class, and we have a great conversation. There's a couple of reasons for that. I said, hey, give me one word that means leadership. And can't repeat the word. Everybody give me one word. I had about 40 or 50 responses, but I do that in class. It's a great time when we do it because it sends a message. I mean, leadership means something different to everybody. But just because your word's different than somebody else's word doesn't mean that word's wrong. It all collectively as a whole. And so I got great feedback on that.
Yeah. So what do you think's the secret sauce to fixing it? If you out of that, because I believe,
And tell me yours first.
And have subscribed. There's one thing that I think will fix it all for leaders.
You want me to go first?
Go ahead.
Because if you go first and you pick if you say I'm going to say, it's going to really ruin this lead up, right? So let me go first. When I do this exercise in class, and I do a 1-day seminar called Courageous Leadership. I can do a 2-day seminar, but a 1 day is much more impactful to get people there. And we're about to roll out a certification where we're going to empower people to go and talk about this and train on this, because that's how we change things. It can't just be me; it's got to be other people. But I spend about an hour on this, and it impacts. I got to cut material when I started doing this because I think it's important to get people engaged, and everybody gets excited about wanting to give their one word, and they can't repeat the word. So go around the room and I say, "Give me your one word." And I actually have a sort of a live poll at the same time, because I did this for a while. I said, rate your agency leadership from 1 to 10. But what I found out is people are there with other people in their agency, and they weren't being honest. And so we have a poll now. They just go to their phone, and up on the screen, it's showing it. Right now, as I speak in my trainings, poor leadership is winning out at about a 69% rate. 69% rate, poor leadership. That's all over the country when I do this. So this isn't just us talking, gentlemen. I mean, this is a real problem, obviously. If you've not been paying attention to the news, obviously they know it's a problem. So I go around the room, and I've done this to, I don't know, man, 3,000 or 4,000 people through the years. They give me the word. Then I get done, and I can always give my word, because this word's never said. There's been 3 times in 10 years someone said this word. So think about that. Thousands of people give me one word, and only 3 times could I not give my word because this word was said. And so my word, what I believe will fix it all, is humility. Humility. And I then say, and of course, when I say it, everyone agrees with that, right? Obviously, people, especially people in our professions, people in my class tend to be people that understand what I'm saying. And people don't volunteer to come to my class that are cowards for the most part. So I'm speaking to the choir, so to speak. And they all agree with that, yeah. But then I ask them a tough question. I said, why didn't you say that word? You know what they always tell me? Always. I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I'm not around it. They're working for people that don't have it. And so the word that people give are typically words they associate with good leaders they've worked around and their characteristics. But the fact that word is the least said word. And in that post, somebody said that word early on. But in class, and by the way, she wasn't a cop that said it. It wasn't a cop that said the word on my post. None of the cops said the word. But I believe humility. And you can't teach that. You can influence people, and when you show humility, they tend to learn from that. That's not something you can teach in a textbook, right? Humility. You're first, I'm second. I'm not taking the new car, you are. I'm taking care of you. I'm washing your feet. And you said servant leadership earlier. I mean, it's very, very similar, right? That's awesome about talking about leadership, is we can all talk in general terms, and many of them mean the same thing. It's not a complicated issue. But if we injected humility, and humility goes against our internal desires. I mean, you can read the first book in the Bible, and we are about me, myself, and I. If you don't believe me, hang out with a 2-year-old. They ain't about nobody but themselves. But look what many of our leaders do. Look at LinkedIn. You mentioned it. Me, myself, and I.
Yeah.
Look at me. You know, there's a couple people on there that always go, look at this and look what I did and repost this for exposure. And I saw this enough because I don't follow these individuals because I just don't. I almost said something I shouldn't have said. But I finally had to say something. I just said, hey, if I ever ask you to repost something, I have been hacked. Because I'm not asking you to repost something. If it impacts you and you repost it, that's great. But if I have to tell you to repost it, that says not good things about me. But there's these marketing types on there in our profession and even running certain organizations in our profession that keep saying that. And it makes me very sick to my stomach because that's the problem. When you stop the me, myself, and I and you focus on others, changes everything, man.
Yeah, it's a game changer.
What was your word? Don't be embarrassed because I just beat you to the word, right? Because I just blew this thing up.
Because you didn't, and I think I could challenge it.
No, let's do it. Let's do it, man.
Vulnerability.
I like that. That word is never said either. That word is never said either. Yeah.
So I'm gonna give you my pitch on it, right?
Yeah.
I think this is the secret sauce. Yeah. And I feel it because I've.
Sorry, the podcast is ending. We're done.
I feel it because.
I thought I was a liberal for a minute. No, let's go ahead and have a conversation.
I feel it because I've
acting like a chief.
I've subscribed to it. So, and I would say that I agree. Being humble is key because it's the opposite of having an ego, and that's what we're fighting constantly, right?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Any other leadership characteristic or trait, whatever you want to call it, being courageous, having integrity, having honor, being humble, any of those, to accomplish any of that, you have to be vulnerable. Because if you're going to be courageous, you have to be willing to get hurt. If you're going to be a servant, you have to be willing to lose something because you're putting someone else before yourself.
If you empower, you have to be willing to give power away.
Yes. Yeah. So it's you have to be willing to get hurt, to basically sacrifice yourself up on a serving platter, right? And say, I'm here for you. That's leadership. But to accomplish it, you have to be vulnerable. You have to accept that you might get hurt. You might lose your job. And you have to be okay with it. That's being vulnerable. And I think that we're in such a low place in law enforcement. The only way to get out of it, and it's, it is very similar to humility, but the only place to get out of it is start from a completely vulnerable state. You know what I do when we hire people or I bring them in on the first day? I sit them down and I go, all right, here's the deal. I'm only going to say it once. I believe in vulnerability-based trust. And everybody will go, of course we trust. And here's why. I don't have time for anything else. Day one, I trust you. Till you give me a reason not to. I'm being vulnerable. You can go out there and make decisions that will cost me my career or my life. But I ain't got time to worry about any of that. So day one, I'm vulnerable.
I like it. And here's why I like it. Because it touches so many things that we talked about today. If I am going to accept responsibility, that's being vulnerable.
You have to be.
Wrong. If I give somebody a second chance, it's being vulnerable. It could burn you, right?
Anything.
Anything that we've talked about today, it touches that. So I'm not sure I like it better than my word, but you're damn close, man. I mean, I really like that word. I'm going to challenge you to write something on that. I'm going to challenge you to write an article on that and get that out there to people. That's really important.
I didn't come up with it myself.
Well, that's being vulnerable by admitting that.
Right. No. Yeah, I didn't. But I've really taken the concept and ran with it. I mean, you ask this guy right here. I'm all about it. And you want to know why I think it's a secret sauce? Because outside of the profession, you're dealing with anything else in life. You go to marriage counseling. You talk to, if you're a person of faith, you talk to a pastor or something. You know what you talk about to solve your problems? Vulnerability.
I thought you were going to bring my wife up here on the microphone in a minute and get her to answer that.
But that's what it is. It's like when you want to make a partnership work or a relationship work, you have to open yourself up to the other person and say, hey, have all you want at me. I'm yours. But at the end of the day, I'm here to help. I'm here. If you're successful, I'm successful. If you fail, I fail. And it's completely 100% without batting an eye, just jumping in and doing it. To me, that's leadership. And that's what these cowards don't do because they're scared of losing something. I don't know what it is, and it might be different for every single one of them, but they're scared of losing something.
Oh no, that's what's holding them together. And for people that listen to this and they don't understand this issue and they think that we're being too harsh on cowards, you have to understand this is the only profession you would ever say that to. If you had school principals doing this crazy stuff, or bankers, or anybody, we would be outraged.
Oh yeah.
We are outraged. Watch the news. We're outraged at a different corporation every day for something that they're doing. Oh, the CEO made $500 million while people, but for some reason, it's taboo to speak about our problems. Folks, if we don't speak about our problems, we never solve the problems. And we have no organization speaking about it. Or if they're speaking about it, it's not the real problem because it's hard to fix real problems.
It all just gets covered up, man. Because you have the bureaucrats. So you have a chief that's doing something. Well, the city manager hired the chief. So guess what? If the city manager can't sit there and be vulnerable and admit that he screwed up, because guess what? Guess who he answers to? The council. Then you have the citizens outraged. Then what? So it all ties back to what you said. Freaking losing something. What is it that you're afraid of losing? And it is probably different, but at the same time, there's probably a lot of it the same. But you're right.
What we have to do, and people understanding how to get here with that mindset, this is a mindset to be able to lose something, to be able to be courageous, is stop caring about reputation. Reputation's fleeting. You don't control it. You think you control it. I could ruin that today.
Absolutely.
I'm involved in a large media organization. I can write an article tomorrow and call it opinion so you can never sue me for defamation and destroy you. Reputation is fleeting. Worry about character. Because on your last day on earth, nobody's going to care about your reputation. They're going to care about what kind of person you were. Exactly. And if you did not display yourself as a person of character, nothing else matters. But you're right. They're all worried about losing their reputation and pension and all that stuff, but they want to be looked at as the reform chief or this chief or that chief or this take. Stop it. What kind of person are you?
A fluffed legacy. I want to leave a fluffed legacy behind. If you're going to leave a legacy, leave a real freaking legacy behind, not a fluffed legacy.
Real legacies you don't read about.
Right. Yeah.
They're not on headlines typically. Sometimes they are, but typically
you know what?
not.
But you know what? When you go to a conference or a school, or you run into some old retired cop in the grocery store, whatever the case may be, that's when you hear about that legacy. When you write about that story about that chief that turned around and said, "Hey, Travis, you're," whatever he said, "Hey, you're a hell of a cop, great cop." That's a legacy, man. That's a freaking legacy. But you know what? It's not in the limelight. You don't got you don't got all the lights on you. So a lot of these cowards, they don't want that because they want the lights, they want the stars, they want the headlines, the articles.
We have to stop building resumes and start building people.
Yeah.
Stop with this stuff.
We're in the people business.
Yeah. Well, the ironic thing is a lot of these folks will talk about community this, community that, but look how you're treating your people, right?
Yeah,
it's wild.
And that's why I always say don't ever expect anything good coming out of your law enforcement organization if what's going on within ain't right.
That's right.
And so if you've got problems on the outside, you know where you need to start looking.
There is truth to the acronym that shit rolls downhill. But guess who's downhill from a street cop? The citizens.
Yeah.
So if you're confused on why citizens don't like your officers, maybe you should look in the mirror.
Amen.
Oh no, let's do a program. Let's sign a pledge. Stop.
Yeah, survey.
If that stuff would have worked, we'd be the greatest professional. We'd be so good right now if all that stuff worked. Stop.
Let's buy something new.
I want to challenge people out there that have the ability to do it. You know, we're really big on what's the community think about us. Well, guess what? Chick-fil-A doesn't go out to the community and hand out surveys. They hand out surveys to people that buy sandwiches. Because if you're in a community and you hate Chick-fil-A, but you've never been to Chick-fil-A, Chick-fil-A doesn't care.
Right.
So let me challenge
I love
you.
that.
Quit playing your little games
I
about
love that.
we've done, because there's companies out there taking millions in these departments that do online surveys on your reputation.
Survey monkey.
Stop. Talk to the people that have actually encountered your officers
That's it.
and see what they think. And guess what? Most officers are going to be 5 stars on Amazon, man. I mean, even the best product on Amazon has the one person occasionally that doesn't like it. But most officers are doing very fine work, and they've gotten no credibility. They've gotten no credit for that in the recent years because once again, the principle of these cowards of violating this huge principle, don't let feelings redefine facts. It's all about facts. And if they truly wanted to show how good their agency was, that we weren't these monsters that the media is making us out to be, they would do that very thing. They wouldn't be scared of it. You know what else they would do? They would do 360 surveys. Hey, how am I doing as a leader? Fill out this survey anonymously, really anonymously, like set up really anonymously. You know, they're so full of it, though. I've heard this time and time again, you know, like, because let's face it, it is unconstitutional to choose people for assignments or promotions based on race, ethnicity. That's been in the law for many decades. But most people in law enforcement know things that happen. And this isn't just about minorities. I mean, there's white people that get jobs they shouldn't get and things like that. But hey, if you really, I've said this a few times, didn't go over well to some of these assessment companies. Let's go, man, obviously, we want diversity. We want the best people, but obviously it has to be on meritocracy. It has to be on what you've done. But if you truly are saying that it shouldn't be about race, then why am I seeing a video or a picture of the candidate? Think about it. If you truly don't want decisions to be made based on race, why am I looking at a photograph or a video of this person? You can do it. You can do it without that. You were never going to see that because they're lying to you, right? They are picking it based on some of that sometimes, whether it's a minority or it's a white guy, which is a good old boy system, right? Same way with your special units. Hey, if you truly want the best person, have them. Let's just take motorcycle unit. Hey, most motorcycle units, they're being mainly tested on how you can ride a motorcycle, right? But we know a lot of units aren't picking like that. Is that their friend? Is that their buddy? Is that do they get along with? No. There's a lot of units where it's literally skill, flying helicopters, riding motorcycles. There's lots of units where it's skill. Well, if that's it, then just show me the skill scores. Don't even tell me who did the scores, but name me one department that does that. None. Just one out of 18,000. Name me one.
None.
You know why? Because they don't want to be vulnerable. That's vulnerable. You don't get to control it.
You have no control.
That's why.
Blind.
A lot of cowards will implement these rules where they can do what they want. You know, you see the promotional list where the chief can pick out of the top 6 or the top 7. Well, I thought it was based on your scoring. Oh no, we have flexibility. Or they'll do a discipline matrix, right? But there's always that line, the discipline matrix, which people listen don't know what that is. That's a chart that says if you do this, you get this, right? It's supposed to take the bias out of discipline, but there's always a line in the policy that says or as best determined by the chief of police. No, if you truly believe in this, take the line out. But all of my scenes got that line in there because they're not vulnerable.
Yeah.
I think it could radically help. You know, I really do. And listen, when I first started saying this stuff a decade ago, by the way, people thought I was crazy. Now I've got people that have implemented some of this stuff, and it's kind of magical. I'm not taking credit for it. I just sort of still have this thing called logic and common sense that I would just look at things and go, I think this does not work right. And I was just that guy that would say it. But policies are a fine example. Like for 10 years, I've been saying this, and until recently, I never heard one department do it. And I said, why are we know there's policies in our agencies that are going to be deemed controversial at some point. Let me just give you one example. Pursuit policies or use of force policy. I don't care where you are. It's not if, it's when. You're going to have a use of force that some people in the community get outraged about and the media picks up on. You're going to have a pursuit that turns out badly, whether we did something wrong or not, and someone's going to get hurt or killed. It's just a dangerous business sometimes. It's very tragic, but we know that happens. Just do a Google search. So you know it's going to happen. So when you develop those policies, because when there's controversy, they always go to policy and training, and they attack it. And what do cowards do? We'll change it. If you change it after the fact, you're no leader, right? So here's what you do. When you develop these policies, you develop the best policy you can, but you don't just develop policy that you think's right, because most people, the higher you go up the ranks, and I know this from experience, you don't all of a sudden know the most about topics, but every department has somebody that lives and breathes use of force, usually a defensive tactics instructor, right? Every department has somebody that lives and breathes EVOC driving, usually they're a driving instructor. They live and breathe it. They may be an officer with 8 years on, but they live it and breathe it. They're the expert, but you got no rank, man, so we don't want to hear from you. So when you develop a policy, get those experts in the room to help you develop policy. But don't stop there. Then when you develop that policy, send that policy to your officers to make sure there's not something there that they see that may hamper. For instance, if you do a EVOC policy, but you got something in there about the primary car is going to do this or the secondary, but you're going to have officers, because people that write policies mostly in American law enforcement haven't done that work in a long time. So you need to send your policy to your policy consumers to get feedback. Be a little vulnerable there, right? It's hard for me to say that word. It's probably why you said it. I'm from Oklahoma, so that word is not rolling off the tongue the way it should. But don't stop there, because you know this policy, regardless of how good you've made it and how much expertise you've got in the room to develop it. And you know that when something goes wrong, because something will go wrong, and it doesn't necessarily mean we did it wrong, but just we work in a controversial business. They're going to attack the policy. So before you implement the policy, let the community look at the policy.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's being too vulnerable.
Now you know our
Now
playbook.
that's kryptonite. Well, they put the policies online anyway. Now that's kryptonite, because then when something goes wrong,
Hold us accountable.
and somebody attacks the policy, you get to say what? Well, you reviewed the policy. You had an opportunity to review the policy. You had no problem with the policy until something went wrong. Right? When something goes wrong, either the officer messed up and they'll be disciplined, or they didn't, but it still went wrong. Because once again, when you shoot people and you chase people, bad people die sometimes. And it's horrible, but that's just the way it is. But until a month ago, not one department that I know of has done that. And to me, that seems simple. Now, they do it with CLEA. You talked about check the box stuff. Every 3 years, CLEA comes in and they show up at the library with the homeless people and they lay out the policies for community review. Right? And they check the box. We're now CLEA accredited. They have to do that. That's not what I'm talking about. Literally, give your community an opportunity to look at the policy. And guess who's going to show up? Probably nobody, because if it's not controversial, nobody seems to care. And until recently, no department would ever do it. And I thought that was a pretty simple thing. Finally, the Phoenix Police Department just rolled that out. They rolled that exact thing out. Large agency.
That's pretty awesome, actually.
And I called a couple people I know in Phoenix, and I said, how did your chief do this? Because, no offense to their chief, but he didn't have, how did he just come up with this? And the guy goes, no, man. We got an officer that read your book that talked about that, and we pushed it up to the chief thinking it'd be a good idea, and he just did it. Right? Now, I'm not taking credit for that. I'm saying it came from an officer that you'll never know his name. But the chief made the right call, because guess what? He empowered and he's vulnerable to let that officer tell him what to do. And he says, that's a great idea. Man, you want to change it all tomorrow? Every leader out there just needs to go, hey, man, forget the suggestion box. You got the best idea out there. Bring it to me. And then let him do it. Man, I had one experience. I know I'm talking a lot. I'm going to give you one more story. During COVID, right before COVID, my chief came to me and he says, he's a brand new chief. He said, I want you to change the police car graphics. Because I was a big EVOC guy. That's when I started training many, many years ago. I was really into EVOC. And I've been harping on our police car graphics, because I think whether this is probably more of an opinion than facts, but I'll give you the one opinion I'm going to give you today, which is if I look at your police car and it's got crappy graphics, I don't think much else in your department's that good, because that's the easiest thing to solve, right? So if your police car looks like crap and you can solve that with $500 and a graphic designer, man, I don't trust you, really. I have fun with it in my seminars, because I'll pull the graphics of the surrounding agencies. I'll say, what kind of department is that? Well, look at the car graphics, So I don't know if it's a valid theory or not. I'll do some research on it. Anyway, but I've been harping on our car graphics. We had like 30-year-old car graphics. They were terrible. But 30 years ago, they looked great. But, after 30 years, there were departments that changed their car graphics twice since then. And so I was always harping on it. I made a couple runs at it. Got all the way past the chief one time to the mayor, and the mayor's husband was like, worked at some rental car place. And, anyway, it just never happened. So this chief knew this, and he knew that I was the guy that was kind of championing this. And he came to me and he said, hey, I want to do this. And I said, no. He said, what? I said, listen, here's the deal, man. You're the brand new chief. I'm trying to stay out of your way because everybody's running to kiss your rear end right now. I said, but here's what's going to happen. You're going to give me this assignment. I'll do the best I can. But everybody's going to start jockeying for position, right? It's the way it is when the new chief shows up. I said, but I will do it if you promise me that you let me do it. Keep everybody away and let me do it. He said, yeah, man, you got my word. Do the best you can. I said, listen, I'll give you my word. I'll do the best I can, and I'll bring it to you. I'll do the best I can. If you don't like it, no offense. I'll find you someone else to help out. I said, but I'll do the best I can, but it may not be what you're looking for. He said, no problem. So I honestly, my ego took over. I thought, man, I've been talking about this for 20 years. I'm gonna do this thing on my own. Every time I travel the country, I'll take pictures of car graphics and kind of get good ideas. I've been doing it for 20 years. I got all these pictures I'm looking at and taking the elements from different cars. And there for a minute, I thought to myself, I am going to do this. But then I thought, this little book here talking about this stuff. I better talk the talk here, walk it. So I called our academy. We had a college degree. We have a college degree requirement in my agency. So we have expertise and people smart in a lot of different areas. I said, how many people in the department have marketing degrees? Because your car graphic is a marketing. That's what it is. It's showing off your department. Most citizens will never encounter one of your policemen other than Quick Trip, but they'll see your police car all the time. And they said, we got 8 people with marketing degrees. They said, but Travis, one of them's in field training. One of them's been on 2 years. And this other guy's been in trouble before for this or that. I said, have them all come down to my office Monday morning. I want everyone up down here. And I should have probably contacted him first because the FTO thought he was getting fired, because, his majors haven't gone to the majors office, this and that. But they came in the office and I sat him down and I told him this. I said, you're the experts here. And I'm going to have some ideas, but we have got to get rid of rank here. Because if typical rank happens, you're not going to tell me anything. You're going to try and tell me things I want to hear. And listen, I'm not bragging about this. I've screwed up mightily in my career. It's in my book. I talk about it. That's how we learn. And hopefully other people can learn from that. But on this one, I think I got it right. I broke down the barriers of rank, and I said, I know you've only got a month on the streets. I know you're in FTO training. I know what your reputation is like. I don't care about any of that. You have got education in this. You understand this. I need to hear the best ideas you got. And, man, 4 days, actually 3 hours later, it was done. It was actually 3 weeks, 1 hour meeting each week. And I called the chief 3 weeks later. I said, hey, car's done. He said, what? Because we're so used to in government.
Oh, yeah.
What do we do? I talk about in my book how cowards are lazy because they look busy, but they're never busy. We're so used to committee and everything that takes months and months and years to get done. And I said, I thought you told me you wanted to get this done. He goes, well, I did. It's already done. I go, yeah, it's done, man. Just come look at it. He loved it, and we went with it. But my point is, what if we act like those geese or goose that are flying right now in a V-shaped formation, and that front bird is flying, and he's flapping those wings, and he's taking the pressure off those other birds, but that front bird's going to get tired. He's going to drop back, or she's going to drop back. The next bird's going to take that bird's place. But maybe that bird is a younger bird and didn't have the experience, but he's next up. They don't change directions, folks. They go in the same direction. But if those were police birds, hell, they would have changed directions because I don't like that bird and that bird doesn't deserve this and this and that, right? But what if we us as leaders, whether you're a sergeant or captain, people around you, you found out the experts you have, the people that are every topic I can think of, even gardening, you have somebody in your department that is passionate about that. But you lift them up about that passion and put them in play. You change the world, man. But now we have people on assignments that are not there because they're the experts, they're there because they're somebody's friend or their good old boy or this and that. Get rid of that. Empower the experts. We have some of the finest men and women on this planet that work in police departments right now that have been told to shut up. We have got to stop that, man. And by the way, here's the irony. I gave up. I mean, I had a couple ideas on that car that made it, but my original idea didn't make it because these guys came up with better ideas. At the end of the day, even though I gave up that power, and I empowered these guys to get them fired, it took a while to get them fired up because they were scared. They didn't want to offend the major and all this crap that we tell people. But you know what ultimately happened, which is the irony of when we don't do this? Guess who got the credit for that and who got that? Of course, it was me. I didn't want it, but people looked at me because I ran it. So if you do that, you're not giving it, you're not hurting yourself. You're helping yourself. Some of the best years of my career was when I had people around me that were great at what they did, and I said, get after it. And they got after it, and they did great work. Guess who that makes look good? So I do not understand this idea that we're not putting a flame behind these officers and telling them to get after it. We're doing it so little, most of them got to go do podcast or do a side gig or run a business just to use their talents. Why don't we use their talents inside law enforcement? And you're talking to a guy that out of 30 years, my talent was used maybe 5 or 6 years of that. And I can tell you what it's like when you're working in that environment. It's tough because you want to do things, but you're not in position to do it because of whatever reason. And I thank God for the 5 or 6 years. A lot of people don't have that many years. There's people that go through their entire career and nobody even knew that they were an expert in this or that, right? Because nobody asked. more or less. They don't even know their spouse's name. They didn't even ask that. And so we have to know our people. We have to empower our people. We have to care for them. If you don't care for them, you're never going to do that.
You've probably read it. One of my favorite books, my favorite chief of all time gave me, It's Your Ship.
Yeah.
Captain Abershoff.
Right.
And he implemented that same exact principle on that ship. That's the worst ship in the worst ship in the Navy. He got on board and he said, "Okay, like what? I mean, he's still a captain, right? But what do you guys want? You know, what do you think's going to better this ship? You're the expert in this. You do this." And that ship ended up being the best ship in the fleet eventually. And that's one of my favorite books. And
That's great.
When you were talking about that just now, that's kind of where I went to. I thought about that book, and I was like, man, if only, right? Like, if only.
If only.
Well, it's not hard. When I was one of the best times of my life, I was a commander over patrol division because I love patrol. I love the diversity. I love the guys and gals that work there. So I was over patrol division. I would go on a graveyard shift quite a bit. My wife, she's here, and she was all like, "Where are you going at 11 o'clock at night?" Well, they would never see me if I didn't go in there because I work day shift. So I went in there one day, and all I said was, once again, this is simple, folks. I just said a simple question. I said, "What do y'all need?" They were like, of course, everyone's quiet. I don't know if you've been in these squad rooms when the chief or whatever shows up, and they don't hardly see him, they just don't say anything. Everybody's scared. I said, "What do y'all need?" And this one guy, after about 2 or 3 minutes of silence, goes, "Major, that TV doesn't work." TV's up on the wall. So what do you mean the TV doesn't work? He said, "The TV hadn't worked in 4 years." This is typical police department, right? I said, "Why doesn't the TV work in 4 years?" And he goes, "Nobody's ever asked us what we needed." I thought that was pretty powerful, man. I thought, of course.
And sometimes it's just extremely
simple
simple things.
Simple.
Like a freaking $400 TV.
Right. I mean, this is not complicated, but everyone thinks it is. And that's a good thing. It's not complicated, so that means we can fix it. If I can talk about it, anybody can talk about it. I'm not some genius, right? Trust me. I mean, we can fix it, and we can fix it because this does not take some fancy DOJ multi-million-dollar grant to fix.
No.
We can just fix it. And here's how we fix it. Officer to officer to person to person, and just start taking care of people, and it grows like wildfire. I'm telling you, man. I've been inside departments where they do this, and it's just like Disneyland. It's complete. Listen, man, I can't keep talking. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I still got to drive home tonight. But listen, I was out in Pinell County. I'm gonna give Mark Lamb a shout. He's running for Senate right now. He's just you see him on TV. He's one of these rare guys that he's just like he is on TV. He's just a good guy that cares for his people. And I've known Mark for years because guys like me, and we got to hang together with guys like me because, man, we're getting some daggers, right? And he's obviously gotten his share of daggers. And I walk at a break-in class. People come up to me. And I'm walking through to get a drink of water or something. There's a canine sergeant in the back of the room. And I was impressed. I mean, here he is at a training room. Man, he's canine out. He's got his vest on. He didn't have the dog, but he's got his vest on. He's looks like a 42-year-old guy, tactical out, he's in shape. I say, "Hey, man, how you doing?" "I'm awesome, Travis. I'm awesome." He's just passionate. I go, "Everything going good for you?" He goes, "Great, man, great." I said, "Why is it great?" He goes, "I love it here, man. They care for me. They support me. It's just so incredible." The guy been on 20-something years. It just felt like he acted like he was a rookie. It's the power of this. So then that night, I had to go to another agency to have a meeting with some guys that were going to bring me in for some training. And I hadn't met these guys before, but they knew I was in the area and they wanted to talk to me. I sat down at the table, and it was like a funeral. I leave that guy, and I go to this other department, and it was like I was at a funeral. These guys were in deep depression because of the environment they were working in. So crazy,
Know the
man.
feeling.
So crazy. This is, folks, there's a reason.
It's a choice.
There's a reason why we all know the stats on our wellness and health, and we don't live like your pension's 100% funded. We brag about it because we're not living as long as the regular population, right? And it's called cumulative stress. But this is like leadership is life and death, man. And they were. I just cannot get that picture out of my head of the misery. I mean, I'm talking misery they were in. And they were telling me what was going on behind the scenes that the public would not believe. And I just could not get that out of my head. And I just thought, look at the difference of what leadership does. I go from a guy that's acting like he's riding Haunted Mansion at Disneyland, laughing all the time, to a funeral in a matter of an hour. And if you're out here listening and you don't think you can make a difference, I just told you how you can make a difference. You may not be able to control your chief or your sheriff or your major, but you control you. There are people around you right now that you can change their lives. And I know that because that people changed my lives that had no rank. I can name off Walt Milner. I write about him in my book. He's one of the African-American police officer in the 60s. I don't have to tell you how tough that was. I get to work, and I mean, Walt was my age at the time. I thought he was this old guy, but I'm working nights with rookie hours, and Walt's there. Guy's been on 25, 30 years. I say, Walt, why are you working there? He said, because I care about you, man. You young cops, I want to take care of you and care about you and make sure you're taken care of. He was an officer, never promoted. Changed my life forever. Other than Jesus Christ and my Father, the greatest man that ever impacted me in my life. Had no rank. Man, and everybody can be like that. But we're demoralized, and I get that. You got to push through that because you get to change the world. You're not pushing some screw on some factory floor tomorrow. You get to go out and impact lives, not only people inside your department, people outside your department. Take advantage of it.
That's good stuff. Unfortunately, I mean, I could sit here for
I could talk about this for hours, man.
The studio will shut us down. So, but listen,
why don't you be courageous, man? Let's just keep going.
So tell me, or tell everybody your website, how they can get a hold of you, how they can get you for any training gigs. Give them all that information.
Well, listen, I'm very honored and humbled. I stumbled upon this training thing. I didn't even know that was a thing about 20, 25 years ago. People started calling and wanting to come talk to them and train them, and I was like, what are you talking about? I train my own department. I don't have time for that, but I didn't understand that. But one day I just said yes, and I've been very, very honored to meet men and women all across this country, 47 states, 3 countries. I get phone calls almost every day from people. It's such a blessing. And one day it will stop. I'm a realist. One day nobody will want to hear from me anymore. But I do it full time now. I retired last July, and I thought this is what God wants me to do. I need to keep impacting people as long as He keeps that opportunity open. So you can go to travisyates.org. If you just remember my name and hit .org. If you hit .com, you will not find me. But .org, you'll find me. But what's important there is we have lots of stuff that I think can encourage you. We do a weekly podcast, and we do weekly articles, and it branches off from that website. All of our trainings are there. I do most of my training is in leadership, but I've picked up this second survival training because I've seen such mindset shifts on our encounters where we're hesitating. So I pulled all that science out of the textbook that we all were taught 30, 40 years ago that has not changed on behavioral analysis, and we pulled that out. I was doing that last week, as a matter of fact, and I'm doing it a couple of days next week on Mark's agency, actually a couple of weeks from now. And so all that stuff's there. And so anything we can do for you, my phone number is even at the top of the website. So even if you can't bring me in for training or whatever, you can listen to the podcast, read the articles. You can just give me a call. I get calls a lot from people that are just wanting to vent or frustrate. And we're actually about to roll out maybe a hotline to help people because I've sort of recognized that. This is a wellness issue. Man, leadership's a wellness issue, and so people need some guidance there. So we're working on a lot of things, and I'll give you a little tidbit. I'm considering doing a leadership ranking score system where we rank leaders. I think people need to know that. We're not wanting to embarrass anybody, but the reason we're holding off is we're trying to get some science and data behind it because I don't want just opinions, right? We need some metrics there where people can report that in, and we can really kind of show people how people are doing. But we're trying to push this as much as we can. We're rolling out a certification probably early 2025 where it's not just me around teaching and training. We're going to empower people similar to that Maxwell certification where he gives all that material away. We're going to work on that because this is, for us to fix this, it's what we said earlier. It's a long-term play, right? And it's beyond me. And we want to empower other people to help. And I've spent many, many years, even got a doctorate degree in it to really try to fix this stuff. And I want to leave a lot of that information to everybody else. So that website will give them all they need to know. You can find me there. You can contact me there. That's pretty much the hub, so to speak.
All right, travisyates.org. Travis, man, we appreciate you so very much. We've been talking about this for weeks, and I mean, it lived up to the hype, and so we greatly appreciate you being here. But more than that, I say we appreciate your passion and effort in being courageous and going out there, because we know, I mean, you're probably on a higher scale than we are. I mean, we know I get a lot of talk about daggers. I get daggers for this podcast, and so I'm sure you do the same. And so thank you for being courageous in that and stepping up for these good men and women that work in these police departments across the country, because we need more people like you. And so I think it's awesome that you are gearing up troops to go out there with you, and then eventually when you're not doing it anymore, that can take your place, because we need them.
Well, if you're getting the daggers, brother, it means you're over the target. So I do appreciate you. I appreciate both of you guys, and you play such an important role. Our men and women deserve it. They deserve what you do. I wish we would be put out of business. You know, I wish we kind of started leading correctly, and there's no reason for us to even do these podcasts or even do these seminars, because everything's going well. Right. But until then, I really appreciate you and so many other people that are really stepping up to the plate. It is going to leave a lasting impact on generations, so I'm very appreciative of the opportunity.
Well, a lot of times on this podcast, I mean, we focus on some negative things, some constitutional violations, things that cops do wrong, but we want to make it clear. I mean, he's a cop. I still have a license. Up until, I still have a license. I'm not employed anymore, but we believe in the mission of law enforcement. A lot of people have a misconception, especially some law enforcement. They say, oh, well, you're just on that podcast talking about all the wrong. No, as a whole, we are trying to better the system. And that so we really enjoyed tonight talking about law enforcement, because we're passionate about it, and being able to implement some of these solutions that we talked about. So, hell of a show.
Yeah, man, I enjoyed it.
Well, thank you very much.
Appreciate you coming.
And also the Courageous Police Leader book. They can get that on your website, right? There's a link?
Yeah, the easiest way is go to Amazon. Yeah,
okay.
But any online bookstores, thing like that, you can get it. But Amazon is probably the easiest to get in a couple of days to your house on Prime delivery. So
okay. All right. Well, I just want to say thank you to our audience for tuning in tonight on the Failing Justice podcast. You can find us at failingjustice.org and all social media platforms at Failing One Justice. And until next time, you guys stay safe and have a good one.
It's not just an organization, it's a call to action. Join us on this journey, satisfaction. Dismantle barriers, build with passion. For a future with justice, it's not a fraction. Yeah, failing justice. Yeah, failing justice. Yeah, failing justice. Failing justice. Failing justice.